6. Once you do, we're good. Okay. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Wednesday, January 11th regular school board meeting on our new meeting time of the month, which is awesome. Please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Awesome. It's great to see everyone. Appreciate you coming. Roll call. We have Director Butler, Director Ledoux, Director Kincaid, our board rep, our student rep, Ava, and myself, Director Carey. Is there a motion to excuse Director Veach?
Make a motion to excuse Director Veach.
Motion's been made to excuse Director Veach. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. All right, moving on to item 2A, board comments. Why don't we do this? Would anyone like to start rather than me just saying a name?
I'll make you choose.
You make me choose? May I choose you, Director Butler?
Actually, no. I mean, I had a great time off. Excited to be back. Liking the beard.
Thank you.
Right, we have a good look at you.
I appreciate that.
The beard. Yeah, no comments.
Okay. Just going in order, Director Ledoux.
Yeah. I missed the last board meeting for some work activities that going on, but so that means I also missed out on the pouring of love session to Director Butler and thanks and gratitude. But I mean, I won't bemoan the subject. We all love you. You've done great work within the district, both publicly and then also privately as well, right? As I jumped onto the board, you were immediately there to help answer questions, and just be a good support system too, as learning the ropes. So, I wish we would have been able to work together longer, but you have had a dutiful service, and everybody I'm sure appreciates it. So I wanted to thank you for that, since I missed it last time. I do have one other thing that just one thing I'm really passionate about, and it's a big reason why I came on the board, was a belief. I think maybe we struggle with this with our kids. I know I struggle with this with my kids, but the belief that I have in others sometimes feels like a stronger belief than they have in themselves. And I bring this up because our children's education, it's a function of how much care and effort the adults in the room put in. And so I kind of just, in my thought process, I broke it out into 4 different categories. That's parents, educators, administrators, and then us, the board. And this is as it pertains to the school district. Parents, first and foremost, it's our job to teach our children the importance of education. And I'll even break that down into the ability to learn. Right? Going to school is learning how to learn. And as strange as that sounds, whether you agree or disagree with the actual concepts that are being taught within school, the critical thinking is really what we're trying to drive. And our children need that support system from home. So we need to be able to exhibit this as parents. I'm speaking as a parent myself too. We need to be there for them. Home support is key. And that's actually the linchpin to the district's success, is to be able to see that. From the educator's perspective, I mean, you have a hard job, probably the hardest, because you are the boots on the ground. You're the people that are right there, working with the students day in and day out. But make no mistake, this is a freight liner and it's not a speedboat, right? We can't change the culture of a school for discipline, focus, action, better test scores overnight. It's going to take a lot of creating this culture of education. While managing behavior, like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. And if there's one thing that I can scream from the rooftop to the educators that I'm sure we would all agree with, is that good grades do not equate success. So like when we're talking, I want us to always go back whenever we're thinking of different ways to make the district better, improve test scores and everything. Let's not just hang on, oh, well, I have this many students with A's. Look at this student. He got 3 out of 3. He got 4 out of 4, this, that, and the other. Let's dig back into why are we maybe getting better grades, but our test scores for standard grade levels are not reaching where they should be. And once again, educators, you do not have an easy job. And you know, that's where we're trying to be here to support. From the administrator side of the house, right, you steer the ship. So the principals, directors, staff, you know, your job, unfortunately, is not going to come without disagreements, right? There's going to be challenges. There's going to be friction. There's going to be friction with staff, friction with parents, friction with students. And this is just a reminder that the right path forward is most often, it's not the easy path forward, right? You're going to have to disagree and commit. You're going to have those hard conversations. If you feel like people that you're working with do not agree, you're going to have to ask that they do for the moment so that we can move through and work with what's best for the district as a whole. And you can call me wrong later, but let's just all be wrong together. If that's the case, hopefully we're not. Hopefully we're all right together. But there has to be those uncomfortable conversations. We're not going to go anywhere if we don't have those. And then last but not least, right, the board. We should be that bridge between the us and them, right? The school district and the community. So we must always seek our purpose. And I have complete faith in my fellow board members. This isn't like a reprimand or anything, but this is, just always just us completely reminding ourselves, we must ensure to work that Granite's children are in the position to thrive beyond their time within our district. And we must ensure that we are representing the community at large. So, right, we're supposed to connect everything. So we all have our part in this. And nobody in this community, I think, nor should expect mediocrity. We all have to be great and we must all hold each other accountable. So this is just the call once again to, just realizing that, like I said, I feel like so often I have so much more faith in others than a lot of times they have faith in themselves. And this is just a great, I can be somebody that you can lean on. I can be somebody that, you can find support in. We all work together. And I'm mentioning this because, like I said, we're trying to turn a freight liner. We're trying to do, and the test scores, are one indicator, but I mean, the whole thing is we just want to make sure that our students are leaving this district not just ready to make do and make a living. I want our students to thrive when they leave this district. So that's my board comment for the day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Director Kincaid.
Yeah, I just had a couple quick things to cover my board comments. I apologize for reading this, but I had this all typed out. At our last meeting, Beth presented us with some findings on comparisons of our district and other districts and sped numbers and the like. And I made a comment that suggested that people go and visit the schools and see firsthand what's going on before comparisons and judgments were made. At which point Director Carey asked me if by making that comment, I was implying that the students of Granite Falls were different. To which I replied, yes, they are different. I did not realize at that time the impact that statement would make. Some days later, I was approached by a few people in different settings who thanked me for saying that. They revealed to me that there are many who are eager to shout from the rooftops that yes, Granite is different, but they have been too afraid to do so for fear of backlash or retaliation from either members of the district or the community. I want to say this evening that it is okay to be different. We are different, and recognizing that is the first step in looking at our unique set of challenges and creating plans to address them or to nurture them. We are uniquely Granite, and that is an okay thing to be. There was a time, at least in my youth, where we were taught to embrace differences, that being different was okay. We were taught to look to others to seek understanding about their differences and to celebrate those differences. Today, we live in a strange time, a time where instead of celebrating differences, everyone is encouraged to be the same, to do the same, and most frighteningly, to think the same. It bothers me that we have people out there who want to share their thoughts, concerns, and ideas, but are too afraid to do so because they think differently and feel they are at risk of being canceled. There is no reason that we need to be the same as anyone. In fact, being different benefits us. Excuse me, lost my spot. Oh, because now that we can recognize that, as I said before, we can address our own set of challenges and differences in our own unique ways. We are uniquely Granite, and that is okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's an excellent thing to be. The second thing I wanted to cover in my board comments was that of the departure of Director Butler. I didn't have much to say last meeting because I needed time to process. And today I would like to say that I'm going to miss Director Butler a lot. Last year, he welcomed me to the board with open arms and was patient with me as I learned the ways. I appreciate his sense of humor and his huge heart for this district and the community. He has always encouraged me to say what I needed to say, and regardless of if our opinions differed at all, he always made me feel heard. So I want to take this moment to thank you, Robert, for everything, and you will be missed more than you know.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Director Kincaid.
Mhm.
Hey, bud. How's it going? You have anything to share with us from
Yeah.
schools?
I just have an FFA update. FFA competed at Mount Si High School on December 8th, 2022 in an employment skills contest. 3 FFA members competed and received second overall in the contest. Our members will be competing again at Snohomish High School on January 23rd in employment skills. We will be hosting our state qualifying contest on February 15th at Grinnell Falls High School. And upcoming this month, our chapter officer team will be hosting a mental health night on January 30th in Miss Ellinghouse's room at 5:30 p.m. In last month, we had our first round of foster kittens with the NOAA Center to bring animal and veterinary science to life. We are excited to have more litters in the future.
Outstanding. I see your hand. No, not right now. Sorry. As far as my board comments, I would just, I've got a ton of stuff to share as part of the legislative report. I've kind of spent the last 2 or 3 weeks kind of deeply in kind of the legislative work and doing my best to communicate the needs of Granite Falls to our lawmakers, especially with the session just recently starting. And I'll kind of touch part on all of that stuff as part of my ledge report. The other thing I want to share is I did have a chance to go to the city council meeting. Extremely happy that now that the people that we serve don't have to choose between wanting to come to a school board meeting or a city council meeting. And I was able to share with them kind of our change in schedule and a couple other pertinent topics and stuff. As well as thank Chief Dalton for all the work that he's doing along with Dr. M to kind of review our safety and stuff like that. So on behalf of the board, I did that, and I'll share the stuff as part of the ledge report. So, all right. Moving on to item 3A, updated student services report prepared by Elizabeth Mills. So it's a prepared report. Are there any specific questions? And give me 1 second to get that pulled up.
Yeah, the report wasn't.
Oh, that's right. There was no report. Oh, I was clicked on the wrong thing. That's why I thought that there was an attachment there. Okay. So I guess it's a presented report by Dr. Mills.
Are there some follow-up questions? I believe was.
Well, if they don't have it,
Yeah.
so they don't have anything to refer to.
Oh, okay.
You want to?
We can.
Is it something that we can do a high level review on and we can watch it?
If Corey wants to send it, I can maybe pull it up.
Well, so my thought on that is I would like a chance to read it beforehand. Is this something we could review next meeting?
Yeah.
Is that too much to ask?
No.
It's the first meeting in February.
We couldn't do it next one.
We're really trying to not do business on Success and Ed nights. I mean, if you want to do business.
After, my last meeting, I would like to see it, have a chance to look at, but I'll go through the once we get.
I mean, I'm not opposed to, I mean, there's options and the board can vote on whatever their options are. We can have it send it to us now and kind of read and discuss it as we're digesting it all in the moment. Or we can move it to another board meeting, which sounds like it's going to be in February, or I guess, or any variation of the two. So we're in discussion. What does the board want to do there? I personally, I think send it to us now. Let's talk to it at the best of our ability since it wasn't included in the packet. And maybe have Dr. Mills, I certainly want to honor the time that she put to putting it together.
Thank you. Yeah, if we can get it, but
I hear two. Anyone else? Thoughts?
I mean, I would like to have it. I mean, it'll be a moot point for me. It won't be in February, but I would like to have a chance to go beforehand, prepare questions, but.
Okay.
I won't be here in February, so it's now or never for me.
Director Kincaid?
I'm open to either. I mean, Beth, do you want to weigh in?
Is it, did I hear it was 2 slides?
It's 2 documents. Guess I should probably. Find them.
You can just, if you want to email me it, I can pop it up on screen.
I can forward it. I just forwarded it to the board.
Oh, okay.
I was.
Well, I guess I just went to honor the will of the board. So I heard
Yeah, I'm-
two people saying potentially wait. Well, or two people do it today. One person said that their preference would be to wait till next meeting,
But it won't be here.
You'll
so.
see.
but they won't be here.
There's 2 documents.
Yeah, I just got it in my email.
One-
I'm okay.
Yeah,
One is the detail about the Grant Falls paras that you requested. And one was some additional local comparative data, including some of the state averages and the state targets. And a little blurb about one of the other questions.
So I guess while I'm reading it, Dr. Mills, if I could just pop another question, I guess, are there any conclusions updated where you went, that's interesting, or anything as you were looking at it? I mean, obviously, I'm just seeing it for the first time now, and I can't talk and read at the same time, so I apologize about that.
yeah.
I think the biggest thing that probably jumps out is the number of one-on-ones at Mount High.
Mhm.
And about it on the screen in front of me.
Oh, you haven't got the email yet?
Oh, you just forwarded it to me.
I think Melanie said she was forwarding it
I
to you.
already did, yeah.
Already got it.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, I guess just leaning on your expertise from this, as you're looking, as you're comparing. I know one of the questions that I had from a few months back, maybe a month back or so, was just around like, what does, I guess, for lack of a better term, what does good look like? And do we know what that?
Right, and so, I mean, that was why you asked me to do the comparison so that we could see how we compare to the other districts. I am in the middle of reaching out to and having conversations with some of my colleagues in some of those districts to learn a little bit more. That was one of the questions that the directors were asking at the last meeting was why the discrepancy? What is the difference? I'm still in the midst of that. I can tell you that the Lakewood executive director shared with me that they have 5 one-on-ones district-wide. So of their paraeducators, only 5 of them are one-on-ones. But I'm still digging into that in terms of some of the whys and how we compare, because the data is one thing, right? But the story behind the data is another. So that's why I'm reaching out to my colleagues. So I'm still in that research process.
And this is anecdotal for me, I mean, but I've substituted at Mountain Way and I've seen students with one-on-one pairs and it seemed appropriate just from the outside, not being a professional and dealing with special needs, but it seemed appropriate them to actually be their one-on-ones for the ones that I saw. So that's the hard part, is it's so specific to the situation. It's hard to say that Lakewood, I mean, Lakewood could legitimately only need those number for the entire district, and we could legitimately need the number we need. And that's the hard part about it. It's not something that 1 + 1 always equals 2, because it's so specialized to the individual. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So I mean, that's the hard part I see is this is like, the answer might be we need all those.
Yeah, well,
And that's the hard part is, I mean, I really think it's good to look at, but I mean, the answer might be what it is, and that's hard.
well, and this is more my thought, and I know Director Carey shared the thoughts in the past of, if we need it, we need it. That's great. But going back to a big a big, which I love, huge fan of data everywhere. Not to make your job harder or anything, but I would love the ability to say, why do we have, 12 at Mountain Way? And for there to be an answer of, because this is our process, and through that process, the test, it led to X, Y, or Z. Like, if it's, well, we're comparing and it's kind of like, it seems like the answers are still kind of like floating in the ether. Like, I would love to hear, like, we have more because, and if we do, we're like, okay, great. I'm glad that the kids are getting the support that they need. But that's what I guess I'm looking more for, is just, it's hard. Data is always difficult when we see something like this to ask questions of it. But I would hope that if all of these are individualized, right, nobody's going through an automated system where they, get paired with whoever. So if these are all individual, I would hope that at least we would be able to hear anecdotally, like, this is why we have this many.
I could probably dig into the data to give some broad strokes around the reasons. I mean, these are all IEP team decisions, the 12, without giving away personally.
Right. And the whole key there is for all I know, right, we could need 12 at each school. And if that's the case, then the problem that the board should be trying to solve is, how can we make sure to work with Marshall or the schools individually to get grants to make sure that we're getting the funding that's required for these, rather than, badgering you about, like, why do we have this many, right? So we just need to know, like, where we need to focus our efforts is the big thing. And the more that I know about the process, and the more that I know why we have 12 here, 3 there, this, that, the other, is then, something that I can, talk with Marshall about, like, what grants do we need to go file for, and what are the reasons why we haven't done these, or could we go after these, or, it helps complete the picture, so then we could be more advocates as well. So.
Yeah, a couple of questions real quick. So I'm looking at the comparative data Word document, and I'm comparing it to what you presented last time, and it appears all the information is the same, other than the addition of the state average and the state target. I guess, am I missing something, or is essentially that's?
So I added the graduation rate, and I had to go.
Oh, I didn't see that.
to
Sorry.
The 2021, because I couldn't do the comparison. So I had given you the 21-22 data in my PowerPoint back in October.
Got it.
So I did add that, and then I added the state average for special education percentage, the LRE, and the graduation rate.
Got it.
And the state average and target.
Okay. And then a breakdown kind of by building, what we have. So I guess my father always says, don't fix a problem that doesn't exist. So, when you look at this comparison data, and it seems anomalous to me, but maybe it's granted, or maybe it's, or whatever. I mean, do you think that the levels are representative of the needs? And as far, when you look at the data, a professional who's worked in Seattle school districts all over the state, do you go, yep, that's it, that's where we need to be? Or that's why that was my initial question. Or is it, do you also see anomalous data that go, oh gosh, why is this different, or stuff?
Well, 19% special education is pretty high. So that jumps out at me. That's one of the first things I noticed about Granite Falls. I think I may have mentioned it in my interview. The LRE, I think I mentioned in October that, and maybe we even talked about this last year, that 4 years ago, the state was right about where we are, and see that there's been a statewide push for inclusion. And so that's something that I think we need to look at. Graduation rate, I'm not sure what that is about, but because of our size, I think that can probably vary year by year. And so I'm not as concerned about that discrepancy, because you could have one class that knocks it back and then the other one, and then the next crew comes along, it struggles. So
Do we have that data from previous years too, so we can see if it's,
Yeah, it kind of does do a little bit of up and down. Because of each cohort.
So just to be, so there were, I heard you say, and I apologize, I can't read and hear at the same time, that there were some other things that you're kind of pouring into that you're gonna also kind of get to the bottom of and come back and talk to the board. What areas was that, just so that I can hear it?
Well, there were a couple of other things that the school board directors were asking about at the last meeting that I'm still following up on. One that I'm in the middle of is communicating with my fellow directors in some of the surrounding districts to
Yeah.
find out why, and particularly the para question. Like I said, what I know so far is that in Lakewood, they have 5 one-on-ones district-wide. Just because that was, you know, some more detail about the other districts and why our numbers are different. So I'm still in the middle of doing that research.
Okay. If I remember, Dr. Middleton, weren't we, I don't know if this was pre-COVID or after COVID, but didn't our sped program like audited or something like that based upon our safety net number or something like that? We had someone come in and.
We did, and it was more of a financial, not a program
Oh, okay, got it.
audit.
Got it. So they didn't look at any of the
Right.
data or anything like that. Okay. All right, that answer that
We
question.
actually hoped that they would look a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah.
but It ended up being more financial, and that was last year with you, right, Beth? Yeah.
Okay,
Most commercial.
Yeah, we had asked them, actually, we requested that they look at it programmatically, more programmatically,
right,
but they said that they were limited in scope to some financial.
okay. Well, for my part, I'd love to hear the end of your evaluation on those topics. And, you know, if the answer at the end of it is, you know, this is Granite, and this is what Granite needs, and I'm comfortable with this, and you know, that other piece that I was talking about of kind of our transitional plan, and obviously we've got some work to do on graduation rates and stuff like that. Then it kind of, as far as I'm concerned, it kind of is what it is. I know Director Veach had some questions. Obviously, she's not here tonight. I guess I will say, and I guess I could talk more about this at the last, but just quickly, there's already been a bill presented to modify the Kaplan state funding from 13.5 to 15. And I thought, well, that's how did they come up with 15? And so since you said the state average, that's because the state's at about 14.5. So that's how they came up with 15. So I appreciate you at least for answering that question for me. Who knows if that'll pass or what'll happen with that, but board, any other questions on this?
I would love, and this is the question that I see when I would love your opinion, like maybe you can go back and dive into as to why, you know, the analysis that I had sent over shows that our paras handle about 6.4 students each less than Sultan, yet Sultan has a higher graduation rate than us. So I would love to dig into to see what that historical data is and say, why is Sultan able to do more with so much less? And is there some way that we can learn from that, or, yeah.
I think I'm talking to Dr. Douglas tomorrow.
Okay, perfect.
So Dr. It sounds like this is something that'll be back on the February agenda then, and we can kind of talk deeper about it. Okay. Unless you guys have any other questions, I'm good.
No, I think I said everything I need to say in my board comments, and I think Robert said everything else that I needed to say. Like I said, we're different, and we just need to acknowledge that we're different and then go from there. As far as like what you were asking about, like Sultan and they have less, you have to understand that each child is different. So they might have individual like one-on-one paras, but they might not. I don't know, it's hard to explain without calling out differences, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Each child is different, so each child has different needs and, you know, that sort of thing.
And for me, it's going back to that data point from last board session is it is completely okay to be different, but I want to, I don't feel comfortable just saying it's different and then just walk away from it.
No,
We have to
that's
say
not what
why
I'm
is
saying.
it
I'm saying
different.
that knowing that we're different, then we can dive in and figure out the why and go from there. And what can we do, you know, to combat things or nurture things or do what we need to do. But like I'm saying, like, you know, you might have a one-on-one and that child just needs a one-on-one because they have, you know, a food issue in the classroom and they have to be watched at all times. Well, their graduation rate is going to be a little bit different than a child that, you know, has severe learning issues.
Yeah,
So that's why, you know, you're gonna see different numbers and stuff like that. It's kind of beyond numbers on a chart is what I'm trying to.
yeah, again, yeah, I think just not to bemoan the point, I think it's just philosophically, from my perspective, there is a different outcome. And then we work backwards to find out if our kids are different, as opposed to assume that they're different and then try to prove that they're different.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, which I guess is kind of my just point, Director Ledoux. I think there's still disagreement on if we are different
right.
or not. We haven't gotten to the end of that road yet.
Mr. Chair, can I just add
Please.
one thing, and that is, I think the answer is yes to both questions. I mean, I think there could be something different or unique, but to Director Ledoux's point and what Beth is working on this year is establishing a process. I don't think there's been a consistent process in identification and exiting and interventions. All of these things that should happen before moving a student into evaluation.
Right.
And so that's the real work that's occurring, which may impact 19%, maybe down a couple percentages, but I think it's still going to be a higher percentage than 15.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
I'm guessing we're gonna go up. Just based on what I've seen this year,
Okay.
I'm guessing our percentage.
I guess I want to say one thing, if I may, is it's funny, like people watching home may not realize we're actually all in agreement. We're just saying it all different ways. Is that we just want to get, like, even when I said it, is like, I want to find out the numbers. I want to delve a little deeper. But the reason my comment was I was tempted the water that it might come out to be these are the right numbers. So I don't want people to think that we're going to go in there and we're going to cut staff. Well, no, that's not what we're doing. We're just verifying what there is. That's all we're doing. And it might be the right numbers. We might be doing it. We don't, that's the whole point I'm trying to make is it's such an individualized process that we can't go look at, well, why aren't we like Sultan? Because they're different people. But we're going to look at our process and make sure we're being as good as we possibly can. That's what, I mean, that makes sense. So I mean, like, I think we're all saying the same thing, just different ways of saying it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome discussion. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Mills, really appreciate it. All right, moving on to item 3B, Human Resources Recruitment Plan, prepared by Jennifer Harmon, or is it presented by? Presented by, there you go.
We said prepared, but you know, yeah. It's 2 slides. Well, we're going to be okay.
Yes.
I like it. Sorry. I did have a question though. Are you presenting or just either for questions? What are we doing? Oh, present. Okay, sorry.
Technically,
Okay.
3 slides, including the title slide.
No. I didn't know her name, so I didn't read that much.
Was the para staffing one?
No.
I would have concrete.
I think it's probably the board packet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's in the work packet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah. You just have me jump through hoops.
3B.
The agenda. It's like,
Board doc.
3B is.
You in Word docs?
I'm on the wrong meeting. That's why
Is that why it looked the same as last time?
like I know it's something like.
usually simple.
I had to click on my agenda, it was there. It's mine.
There we go. Okay, I got it pulled up. Are you pulling up?
He's working on it.
Okay,
I'm getting an email currently.
Video that I realize how large my forehead is.
Is it a 5 head?
It is. It is. My brother used to call me shovelhead.
You should move that.
Just comb down.
Comb down, not come over, you come down.
Exactly.
Can I ask a general question?
yeah. Why don't,
I mean,
are you okay with us jumping into questions? I guess once it gets pulled up, we can, oh, that's okay. We can then go through it.
so I know we talked about encouraging our staff, let us know if they plan on retiring early. Is that process still in place?
I think
Yes, we just discussed
I'm
it.
gonna talk on.
Yes, we discussed it this week.
Okay.
As part of, identifying. Positions that may be open based
Okay.
on the retirement incentive.
Okay.
And then having it open for a little bit longer, so people have time to, if they're maybe on the fence. They think, well, you know what, I'm gonna do it, have time to meet with their financial planner.
Figure it out.
So.
I just didn't see it on this, why I asked.
All right, looks like it's pulled up. Why don't you go ahead?
Let's go. So this is the time of year where we start looking to next year. Already, it's only January. So my office is already thinking about 23-24 school year and recruiting. So actually, I feel like I should go to the second slide. We have a lot of challenges in our recruiting. Go back to
The button's not gonna work. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to.
Oh, okay. Okay, so really our recruiting and going to career fairs, which our plan is to go to Washington State Teachers Career Fair, which is the biggest one in the state. There's a fair in Spokane, which really captures a lot of the students on the east side, and then Tacoma, which is Western Washington, and then people who come from out of state. Western Washington University is the place we usually go because we get a lot of student teachers from them, as well as their health and education fair includes speech language pathologists, speech language pathologist assistants, and some other areas that we need to recruit for. And then others, it's just as our openings come available, getting them out on as many different sites, Indeed.com, diversity in education, so we can hit a wider range of educators. Handshake is a tool that a lot of the universities use, so you can make your posting in one place and select the universities that you want to push it out to. And then specialized field associations. So if we were looking for a school psychologist, for example, you would put it on Washington State Association of School Psychologists, national, just kind of targeting those, because those are hard positions to fill. So kind of some of the challenges we go, unless you guys have questions.
I have questions, but we can wait till the end. Go ahead.
So some of the challenges we face as a district is that, enrollment fluctuations drive our hiring in a small district. And hiring is based on enrollment. So a lot of the time, we have to wait till August when we know we're going to have enough kindergartners to be 8 teachers or 9 teachers. So we have to wait late till we know, because our budget can't carry an extra teacher. That's about $140,000 that we just don't have. So it's a challenge. I think our career fairs is really what we do there is we talk about what might be coming open, really sell granite balls, so that if folks may have decided other things, hadn't accepted an offer or found a place they wanted to be, they're still available in August. And then replacing retirees. So
trying to identify the positions where we might have people retire, and then we have to make a decision if that's a position we're going to fill the following year, or if we can absorb it. And then if it is something we are going to need to fill a specific position, we would post it now. Like if someone was said, hey, I'm going to retire, and it's a position that it's hard to fill, we would go out and start now. And then hire as soon as we could. We're up against, larger, better funded districts, which hire early. They start hiring February, April. Sometimes they hire 40 to 60 people and make placements in the summer, what grades they'll be in. So we're up against that. It's kind of a challenge. We spend a lot of time at the career fairs. I do anyway, of telling people we're not that far from Marysville, Arlington, Lake Stevens, Everett, Snohomish, just to say that we're out here because people always ask where's Granite Falls. I'm like, oh, I see. So I think getting our name out there is the biggest thing. We are. And then we just have to differentiate Granite Falls from other districts in our non-financial or other financial, not the regular salary, which would be our overload, our caseloads, class size, special ed stipends that we have for the work that goes into IEPs. We have extra days for school psychologists, school counselors, and some of those positions. So just kind of selling ourselves in any way we can. With hard to fill positions, with specialized endorsement requirements, CTE positions, we look at alternative pathways, which is people who come from industry into teaching. Special education, Karen and I have worked with Western Washington University on student teacher placements and getting a regular group of students that come in and do the student teaching here. We try to make sure it's elementary ed and special ed. We hired 2 of the people that we had. So it's a win, I think. And then for school psychologists and speech language pathology, it really is recruiting. It's like just turning over every stone and looking and trying to find somebody that wants to work in a district like ours and fits. So, and that's hitting all of the association. But they would be possibly looking for jobs. That's kind of the summary of our challenges.
Board questions?
First, I'd actually like to put Director Kincaid on the spot, since she's actually in the profession and maybe can shine a little bit more light on the process and where stones might not be yet unturned, like Liberty.
I'm still,
Have a thought process.
well, I'm just starting student teaching, so I'm just kind of learning about this side of things. So I don't really know. I know one of the big things that they're promoting over there is handshake. There's also too, I'm part of a honor society. So I don't know if that's a place to look at the different honor societies, because they have like job boards and stuff as well. That's kind of the only thing that I can add really that I know
of. As far as, so you mentioned, Western, I'm not familiar with all the educational programs around here. Like, are the community colleges, are there pools to take from there, like Wazoo at Everett Community College? Do they have any
Washington State does not, but
Okay.
we not often get students from Washington State, a few make inquiries, but yes, we get a wide range. Like this spring over at the high school, we're going to have a placement from Seattle Pacific with the counselor at the high school. So high school is a little bit different. Elementary, it's the Western Partnership, their school of education. We get a lot of the elementary ed. In the other, in secondary, it tends to be one of their schools. So whether it's WGU,
in this will kind of feed into, not to jump into the financial piece from Marshall, but I know labor costs are a discussion point, and you mentioned the issue of, well, we can't really make hiring because hiring is based off of enrollment. However, I feel like our district too is running into labor cost issues because we don't have employees in place, so we're paying contract, which my understanding is a higher rate, correct? So I'm wondering, is there a hurdle rate or something that we should be made aware of like, we can hire 3 additional headcounts strategically where, yes, we may have overhired, but that hedges us from having to pay 2 times as much for, like, I guess I'm just trying to figure out in that, I guess that would be more of, are there specific departments where that's more prevalent, where a methodology like that would be possible, to maybe have an additional head count that we could move around, or like a floating head count or something, or do that. I'm sure these are all things that you've probably thought about already, but I just look at, we can't hire, we can't hire because they're too expensive, but then we end up spending more money on contract workers. So there's got to be some way to.
I would say the positions that we end up contracting are the ones that they're hardest to fill.
Okay.
So, and then they are specific in their job function. So you could say this year after August 31st, we've hired 3 more teachers, right?
Mhm.
So you could say, well, we could gamble, because it would be a gamble. Like if you hired 3 bodies and say, hey, we're going to place them, but our budget can't cover
Mhm.
if enrollment is low or it doesn't grow like we thought it would, then we're carrying 3 contracts we can't afford.
Yeah.
So, and then the specialized functions, that's what they do. So those are the hard ones to find. And it's really just getting on top of it. Getting in front of candidates.
And Peter, we are, even though we have contractors, we're actively recruiting all year round for those positions. And we would happily, a lot of the contracts have a 30-day notice clause or some clause like that. And if we find somebody to replace them, we just have to give the agency 30 days notice.
Okay.
And so we are, in those positions, we're recruiting 24/7, 365 days a year. If we found someone, we'd hire them.
Yeah.
I have any other questions? I have a couple. I don't want to jump in front of anyone else.
I just had one, for the positions like CTE positions and stuff, do we recruit at other places for like maybe people who have a degree in something else, but they could get a provisional license, like for manufacturing or culinary or things like that?
I haven't gone to like out into business. I
Yeah.
usually work with Kevin closely on where we might want to, put out the information.
That might be something to look into, especially a lot of people, didn't go back into those things after COVID, and they might be wondering what they could do with their time and have that kind of real life experience behind them. So that might be something to look at.
Yeah, especially there's a lot of people after COVID decided to make career changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what's that? I'm sorry, Director.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So one of the things I heard, I guess I had never heard, I guess as loud as I'm recently hearing it from other boards, other school districts, is that there's a teacher shortage, that there's, as a matter of fact, I heard one board, a large district say that, gosh, I'd hire 50 more teachers right now if we can, because we're in overload and we just can't find them and stuff like that. So I guess specific to teacher, are we experiencing, a teacher shortage in your opinion, or where we would otherwise want or need more teachers, but we're kind of, we've got, all that we could find right now?
I feel like right now just in the last couple of months, we opened for the transitional kindergarten. And we were able to fill that. And then we added 2 classes at elementary and we're able to fill those we had applicants and had a decent pool. So I don't think, my estimation, we're experiencing that, but we don't hire as much.
Right.
I think it really helped that we have the partnership with Western. I think it's really, there's the pool for specialized positions, counselors, mental health providers, school psychs, SLP, that's the people that's small.
Got it.
And I was just making a comment in the office today that I get calls every couple of days about people wanting to be substitute teachers who actually have their certificates. which has not happened in a couple years. It's a strange thing, just. We've been struggling for a long time, and we're like, oh, all right, we're in the feast part of our cycle, so.
How about classified? I mean, are we,
Classified is hard right now.
Hmm.
Paraprofessionals is just finding people who want to come to the job, custodians.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, anyone listening, interested in working for a district, we have openings.
got it. And so of the things that you, of the career fairs and all those things, the marketing, I guess I was just curious, how much of those are new or hey, we're doing this for the first time, or, you know, in our hope of trying to, you know, reach out to a more, you know, get more diverse, bigger pots, those types of things. Is there anything in this that's new that's, hey, we're trying this in that frame of mind, we're trying this new to try to eat at that apple?
Well, I didn't put, I did.
Can you go back to slide 2?
Yeah, go back, yeah, go to slide 2. I didn't put, I should have let him. So for like SLPs, it's Pacific Lutheran has a program.
Can you say what SLP stands for? Just, yeah,
Speech language pathology.
thank you.
So for that degree, Pacific Lutheran University has a program, so targeting like those individual places. I just didn't want to make a long list of just universities we're going to try to hit up and see if we can go just to see who we can get.
Are there anything that we aren't doing that you're like, gosh, I wish I could do this, but I just don't have the time, the manpower, the ability, or anything like that?
To get on every site, it's very time consuming to go to every website to post a job, because you have to take the same information and duplicate it over and over. It's time consuming. That is the one thing I wish I had more time for.
Yeah. Is there, so I guess now this is a process question. Is there something different that we can do from a process standpoint that allows us, and I'm guessing what the answer is, but I'm just going to ask out loud, that allows us to get out earlier or have a better, you know, have that kind of early out with the larger districts so that we can, you know, that we're kind of playing more in that field? Or is it just simply we don't have the funding? And Marshall, feel free to speak. We just don't know. So we just gotta wait. It is what it is. But if we have from a board could change something from a process standpoint, maybe we could get out earlier. Is there something we can do to help you, I guess, as you're doing this work?
I will appreciate the offer, the request. I think really this is kind of it. I mean, we are stuck where we're at in terms of not being able to hire early, just because we can't afford it.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have our own teacher career fair. I know some school districts do that. I don't think we're big enough to do that because we're not hiring 25 people for the break. So that would be the one thing we're not doing that other districts do.
Yeah.
But they're bigger. You know, they're hiring a lot more people.
If I could add, though, there's, you know, last year, coming off the previous year, which was predominantly hybrid and a late in-person attendance, we had no idea what to expect when August came for this year. And so we were nervous about, you know, bringing on too many teachers. Pre-pandemic, the practice was sometime in the spring to have pool interviews, which means, yeah, advertise for what we anticipate. Have some initial interviews. And then as resignations and retirements came in, we go back to that pool and interview those who might be interested. But that pool is, we're really weeding out at that point, so that, you know, let's say there are 40 people in the pool. These are our top 10. Let's keep an eye on them. And then as an opening comes, but we just had to abandon that last year because we did not want to hire until we really saw the students in the classroom. And so, you know, I know, you know, we did the best we could last year, and but it's not a preferred practice. So this year, we do plan to go back to that pool practice.
Got it. So I guess I can't promise you it's my last question, but so is there, I mean, I've said it before, unfortunately, the reality of the situation are the odds are stacked against us as a small district. I mean, they just are. And anyone that says that they aren't is not aware of the system and the way that it works. And that's the unfortunate reality. However, we can also try harder, out hustle, right? You know, all of those things that, you know, I told all of my kids when I was coaching football, right? You might not be the biggest kid, but you got the biggest amount of fight in your heart. So I guess that's what I'm looking for. And I know I'm putting you on the spot. You don't necessarily have to answer now, but, you know, how can we, you know, leverage the things that we can control?
Right.
Because I'll give you an example. Previously, I heard a lot of discussion around retirement and resignations about how those were coming in so late that it was really kind of handcuffing us to know, okay, here's the people that are, you know, are retiring or leaving. So here's how many spots I have, you know, combined with enrollment. Okay, gosh, I need 10 and we're trying to figure that out very late in the program. And we talked about doing some bonuses and stuff like that to get people to kind of say, hey, I'm retiring early enough. Is that working? Are we seeing, you know, improved communication? Because I think we did that in the.
We've done this the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And
Is it working?
It does help.
Okay.
It does help. Especially in those sort of hard to fill positions of specialized CTE program or a music or band or something like that. When we get that early notice, absolutely, it helps quite a bit. Your point, though, is there is something about the economy of scale. So Everett can do their pool. They can do it in November if they want it because and offer contracts because they know 100 elementary teachers are likely to leave. And it's not too risky in offering 100 contracts just because they know that data, whereas you get to a smaller district. But to your point, okay, what are the things that we can offer? And so Jennifer has developed information out to candidates, exactly what she said. Hey, you come here, you're going to have smaller class size. So we're going to know your name. You're not going to be a number in a big system. I mean, all of those things do get communicated to our candidates.
So is there, one of the other things I'm trying to do is identify the roadblocks, because there's always more that can be done, but there's roadblocks. I don't have the time, manpower, you know, whatever. So is there also a way that we can, and you know, one of the unfortunate realities also being a small district is lots of people wear lots of hats, right? And so obviously there's only so much that you can do, right? And I'm sure as I look at this, I'm guessing that you're doing most of this yourself. Yeah.
There's a group of teachers or principals and Beth will be going because we always need special ed or anyone in student services. So yeah, there's a group that comes to the fair and we just talk our faces off.
Yeah.
Candidates, you know.
So I guess what I'm getting at in a collaborative of not asking Jennifer, I need more from you, of going, okay, well, you know, there's this great career fair in Walla Walla that I just don't have the time for, but it would be great for us to go. Who could go? I mean, maybe I got some business in Walla Walla. I can go, you know what? I'll be around in the area. I can go to that. Tell me what I need to do. I guess that's what I'm asking is what other things can we do if we can just remove a roadblock or two that allows us access to more people, because again, the system's leveraged against us. So we just got to work harder than other districts. And, you know, that I feel concretely is different about Granite is that we work harder than other districts. Okay. We do more with less. But I guess I don't know how we do that in a systematic way of, you know, having something out there to allow people to sign up for or what. So I guess I'm posing that as can we think about that? Can we talk about that kind of thing?
That point there. So, you know, I use the example, right? In a down economy, people, you know, say when, you know, you're making offers on homes and stuff, it's like, you know, this is the time to make a disrespectful offer, right? Because people are trying to sell their homes and stuff like that. It's like for you guys, this like from a district point perspective like this, make the ridiculous ask. What ask that you have that might sound like, oh, geez, it sound ridiculous to ask Director Carey to go to Walla Walla. And he's just like, I'm in.
Yeah.
You know,
That's exactly my point.
make the ridiculous ask.
Yeah.
Because the worst case is it comes back is, sorry, can't help. But, you know, maybe there's some, I don't know how far it can extend into the community as well, maybe even, you know, people going and people helping people. But yeah, make the ridiculous ask. The worst thing is, you know, oops, sorry, like won't be able to make it, but give it a shot.
Even on you made the point, and I wanted to make sure I touch back on it, that, you know, entering all of this stuff in these different websites and all of that is pretty time consuming and stuff. So, you know, if I'm pretty good with the clickety clacks. So, you know, if it's a clickety clack thing, you know, I'm willing to do that as well. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one. I'm not saying that like, you know, we all got, I'm just, you know, make the ridiculous ask. I don't think it can be said any more than that, just so that we can, you know, make our voices heard. Because to your point, Dr. M, about kind of our selling point. No, that is legitimate, and I think that is a significant selling point that we can make to people that are looking to come into the district. And if we can say that more, then maybe we get a pot, which, you know, allows us to bring in, you know, people with different live life experiences and, you know, our diversity goals and, you know, and all of those things. We get to check all of those boxes by doing that. So I'm willing to roll up my sleeves metaphysically and literally to do the work. So,
Well, in to that point too, of, you know, making the ask, so long it too, if I get an email and there's an ask for assistance, and especially if it's said in bold up front, like, this, you know, this is a public ask too. So it doesn't just have to be like member from within the school district is actually conducting the work or something. I know within my community page and everything, you know, Facebook, people are always asking like, how can we get more involved? How can we help? How can we do this? So if I get an email that's like, hey, this is a public ask, like, you know, we would love to have, you know, if there are parent volunteers or something else. I know Carly's doing great work on, you know, helping, you know, including the community more on that, but, you know, doesn't hurt to have more areas where if I get an email, I can then, hey, is it okay if I copy and paste this onto my community Facebook page and ask for assistance? And I'm sure people would come and help. So
I just want you to walk away from here, Jennifer, and feel like we're behind you. And you know, it's not a matter of you doing more.
I know what everybody wants, what's best for Granite Falls and our students. So.
Yeah, I think Marshall had something.
I will ask you
Yes.
something. Please, we have strategically placed you as in a legislative position at WASA. I think what the state lacks is a statewide marketing campaign to explain to younger people and people at the middle school, high school, college level, how great a career is
In education.
education in Washington.
Mm.
All you ever hear about is how hard it is to be a teacher nationwide, and it's all over the news. But the state of Washington does a really good job of funding education. I mean, they do a terrible job of funding education in Granite Falls, but statewide, they do a good job. And a targeted marketing campaign by a statewide organization that educates people on the benefits of an education career would be tremendous.
mm-hmm.
And you could charge districts a fee to be part of this cooperative, you know, a per student fee or something, and have this marketing branch to WASA or to OSPI or to WASDA, or that puts out the word everywhere, TV commercials, whatever, about come teach in Washington, be a teacher in Washington, be a psychologist in Washington, be a principal in Washington. It's better than almost anywhere else in the country.
Yeah.
And nobody knows that.
I
I thought teachers were the worst profession in the world when I got into education. And now I see that you can make a career being a teacher. And I don't think enough young people know that.
I couldn't agree with you more, Marshall. And I won't go deep into this, but just to let you know of a program that you guys may or may not know that I recently found out about myself. So the Seattle School District has a program, whereas if you're a student and you graduate from the Seattle School District and you want to be an educator, they will pay for you to go to college and get your teaching certification to go. If you sign an agreement that you'll come back and you'll teach in Seattle School District. Wouldn't that be nice for us to have? Wouldn't that be great to say to students, hey, I'll pick up the tab for college if you tell me you're going to come back. I mean, what's better than that? You're a product of our system, you teach in our system. But unfortunately, the funding model doesn't allow us to do that. So I'll just leave that there. Thank you. Anything else for Jennifer? Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right, business report prepared by Marshall, or is it presented by? Prepared by.
My report keeps getting longer and I hear things or I see things that are interesting, potentially. I add them to my report.
There it is. I know what tab's open.
It doesn't need to be up there, Corey.
Are you sure?
Yeah. They all, everybody has it, and really, it's a long report this time. Couple of things that I've added is that, we've talked about it through recruiting, through, special ed. We are having some difficulties with, meeting our fund balance goal for this year. And I think that's why I called out now that it's at risk. We have a lot of leaves that we're paying for basically 2 teachers to do 1 job. We have a lot of contracts through agency employees, for example, nurses. I think we have 2 or 3 nurses that we've had to go to agencies for that are 3 times the cost of if we could have them through our hiring process. We have other specialized special ed contracted employees, all the paras that we have that we aren't getting any funding for. We have tremendous amount of obstacles this year, and we are doing everything we can to try and limit those. But I just wanted to hit you guys early with it's 5% is probably at risk, and we'll know a lot more in a month when all of our apportionment gets adjusted for a real enrollment. We have better enrollment than budget, so we'll get a kick in there. We have transitional kindergarten starting, so we'll get some additional revenue from that. But we have some hurdles that are unavoidable and causing us to make some difficult decisions. But I will also say we're not alone. I threw a slide in there that shows the 5-year trend for fund balances for all the districts in our region, as well as the top 5 districts in the state, and as well as 3 just noteworthy districts around us. The story is the same. I'll call out Seattle because that one was in my mind. I believe that their fund balance 2 years ago was $190 million. They're projecting their fund balance at the end of this year to be $50 million.
60 million.
60 million.
Yeah.
It's a similar story. I believe Arlington's fund balance 2 years ago was 12 million. They're projecting 4 million at the end of this year. There is a tremendous need for resources for kids right now, and there is no funding for it. So everybody's having to dip into their reserves. We're fortunate that we don't have declining enrollment. It's worth in districts that have declining enrollment. We're fortunate that we have manageable labor agreements, whereas, places like Everett are stepping down from 24% regionalization down to 18% regionalization and still having the highest paid contracts in the state. So, I mean, we're used to living lean. We do who does better with less than Granite, right?
Thank you for hitting the tagline.
I think in the very near future, you're going to be seeing a lot of stories in the news, a lot of neighboring districts being very vocal about the amount of cuts they're going to be making next year, the amount of RIFs. They'll be taking RIF notices to their board. We don't anticipate doing any of that kind of thing because we have increasing enrollment. I know Everett today sent out a message to their staff and to their parents asking for some input on. I believe that they have a tremendous amount of cuts to do next year. And Everett's one of those school districts that their fund balance is probably between their high point 2 years ago to the end of this year, it's probably declining by 2/3. It's a difficult time for education, and I think we were all hoping that step up because of the tremendous needs that our kids have right now. But it's not looking like that's gonna happen. I know Carl will probably dig deeper into that in his. But that's my doom and gloom.
Well, I mean, doom and gloom, I mean, we're looking to double ours. Still, right? We're gonna, year over year, we're gonna not quite double, we're gonna significantly add to ours
I
year over
think
year.
we can still gain by about 600,000, so another gain by 50 or 60%.
Yeah,
But that it's a lot of difficult decisions when an IEP we have to add some para support. The stuff that the state doesn't fund us for, we have that $5 million little bucket of our levy. And when we have extra paras, well, we have to find a place to cut somewhere else. When we have really anything beyond the vertical school model, it all dips into that $5 million. And we do a great job of getting grants. I don't know of a district that is more aggressive, a district our size, that's more aggressive at going out and getting grants. We have probably $1 million worth of, maybe $1.3 million in grants that we've got out for this year that we have help support us. And we always have a lot of grants because we need those here because we don't get funded by the state. I mean, to Carl's point, raising the special ed percentage to 15%, sure, that'll help us. That'll probably give us $200,000. Eliminating the threshold at all and recognizing that not every district is the same would give us about $1.5 million.
would make sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't help the districts that are at 14.5%, but they don't need the help.
Questions for it?
Honestly, if all I was to look at was the 5-year area fund balance trend, while I would love for us to be at 5% at the end of the year, yes, I mean, relatively speaking, we're flying. Like, I mean, if I look from 5 years ago to the projected end of this year, actually, given the numbers that you just said, about $600,000 increase, right? That's a 10x over 5 years in our fund balance. It's good. That's fantastic. Still, obviously, like once again, we want to hold ourselves to the higher standards. So that's fantastic that we are continuing to go towards that. Assuming what, can you remind me, what would we need to be at 5% again?
Right at 2 million, maybe 2.1.
Okay. So we'll be about 400,000 short now. In my mind, in the past, from asking for gap analysis reasons, you mentioned, double paying for positions double over because of, extended leave and so on and so forth. Would you attribute, how much of the labor cost would you attribute to that $400,000 gap?
Overall labor cost, it's all labor cost. I
Really?
mean, our budget is 85% labor.
Yeah.
So it's all labor cost.
Okay.
We do a good job of managing like supplies and electricity, gas, fuel, those kind of things. It's having to. I don't think any of us have ever seen a nursing shortage like we're seeing right now statewide. And these challenges we have aren't unique to us.
Yeah.
They just hurt us a little more because we're small, and having 3 nurses that we pay, $80 to $90 an hour for, where in the past we've only had to pay $30 an hour.
So would that, I mean, that's a perfect example there of when we're looking at, I don't know, I'm just thinking of, referral bonuses or like something that we can offer to try to get somebody in the door. Cause if we're paying a contract nurse $90 an hour, but we could, a full-time nurse, I don't know, it would be 45, 50, but like we're automatically, allowing for another head count there. So I'm just trying to just think of different ways. I feel like you and Jennifer should have presented together. Like, since the $400,000 gap is from labor and she needs labor. So
We work together a lot.
Yeah. But no, I mean, this is super helpful because I love to see it's not just point in time, it's across the years, assuming these are all relative to one another throughout the years. Like I said, a 10x growth in our fund balance is great. We'd like to see it more. But then, like I said, if we can see that what you're assuming would be a $400,000 gap between the 1.6 million to the 2 million that we need is attributable to the labor or the staffing issues and the additional labor costs, then that makes me whole, at least in terms of understanding where we are. We can kind of focus on Jennifer and staffing, and like that's where we want to aim, is how can we better align our labor costs.
So in my past life,
That's Brendan.
I think Robert's looking at the slide where it has the expense projection.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
No.
I included, the expense projection I gave last time to a new one, and I gave the timestamp for them so that you can kind of compare where things are changing.
Mhm.
One of the things that I used to do in a past life is in private industry, they liked these things called bridges, that you would bridge what you expected to be at to where you're at with actual data of what's driving you to get there. So like, we were gonna have a $2 million fund balance. Now we're gonna have a $1.7 million fund balance. What is the bridge? Well, it's gonna cost us an extra $104,000 in nursing that we weren't expecting. It's gonna cost us $87,000 in leaves for teachers. It's gonna cost us $250,000 in paras. That's it. And it just bridges that $400,000 to $500,000. If the board would like to see that, I'm very used to making those as part of my presentation. The bridge of data just to why we projected here, why we're gonna end up here, what's driving that.
Yeah, like that, and that, bridge, I call the gap analysis. For me personally, it's just understanding that a lot of our money or all that money is going towards labor costs. It's not like we're, frivolously purchasing things for the schools and stuff like that. It's narrowing it in on a certain space, and then how can we solve that problem, right? So we're starting to work backwards to, we don't have as much money as we want. Why is that? Now let's see the different solutions that we can do to help that process. So,
Couple of things, I guess, just data points, I guess I want to throw in here, not to say that looking at this doesn't, at least make me feel good that, we're doing the things we need to get through a responsible fund balance. But I guess a couple of things hidden in this data, and Marshall, feel free to tell me I'm wrong, is if you look at the 1920 and the 2021, a lot of districts significantly increased their fund balance because they got a lot of CARES money, COVID money, and stuff like that. On top of that, their enrollments dropped, so they were able to kind of right-size their staff. And if you remember, the state froze enrollment numbers as we went into COVID. Well, Granite Falls is one of, if not the only, correct me if I'm wrong, school district in Snohomish County that has consistently increased enrollment. So freezing did nothing for us, right? So if you're being paid for 2,000, but you've only got 1,500 students, you can reduce your level of staff to 1,500 and you're still funded from the state at a 2,000 level, right? So great for them. They're able to, put some of that money to fund balances and stuff like that. On top of that, I know firsthand that there's a number of these districts that are intentionally spending down their fund balances. Why? Because they had 10-15% fund balances, huge fund balances, and so they're trying to right size that. On top of, they're kind of waiting, hoping, anticipating that the legislature this biennium is going to do something for funding and is going to kind of give an influx of cash. So, you know, there's some people here that are like, okay, I'm just going to sit on my staff level right now, not do anything with my staff, use that to spin down my fund balance with the anticipation that more money is going to come rolling in the door, and then I'll be fine and or make decisions and stuff like that. So, you know, that's kind of hidden all these numbers. But, you know, with that said, I don't want to take anything away from the fact that we are without a doubt trending in the right direction there. But again, unfortunately, the system isn't necessarily leveraged to benefit us. And I'm not trying to be the Chicken Little, you know, the sky is falling, but, you know, I'm just kind of interjecting not only for the people in this room, but anyone listening to this. And again, the system is a little geared.
Could I add one thing to that?
Please.
On the same thought is, you know, those districts could be building up because they laid off some staff, and really this board made a moral decision to keep our staff whole for the sake of this community and for their jobs. And so despite, I mean, yeah, we were trending up, but we kept everyone whole, and yet we still were able to increase a little bit.
Thank you for that, Dr. Ham.
Can I just make a comment?
Please.
Since I'm leaving soon, I don't care, backlash. How is it that a district nearby lost, like, did not pass their levy twice and is only going down by $7 million? I mean, that blows my mind. I'm like, how are they doing that?
Well, their levy is.
I'm talking about Marysville. I'm just.
Yeah, their levy is fully funded.
I was going to compliment you for not saying the name, but there it is.
You know, feel free to send me complaints in February. But like, how do they do that?
Their big problem is going to be next school year.
Next year.
And they do have half of their levy.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Because I'm like, how do they only get, like, everyone else is dipping like a ton? Like you look at Arlington, from 10 million, they're budgeting 4 million. That's a 60% reduction. I'm like, how in the world did Marysville just not drop that much?
And
But-
I will say these are what they're budgeting to end the year at.
And we'll see
Some
what
could
happens.
be worse, some
Yeah.
could be better. I did look at past trends of how well they were able to predict via their budget, what their ending fund balance was.
Yeah.
And some did, I mean, it can vary by 10% either direction.
Okay, I mean, I get this kind of compliment. I mean, they manage that well. I mean, it's not so much an insult. It's like, how did they do that? That's impressive.
So
It will come.
I've got one, and again, I won't promise it's my last question, but it is a hard question. So you said that we're at risk of meeting the 5% fund balance. So what would it look like, or what if I said that's unacceptable? Can't do that. Got to meet it, figure out a way to do it. What would that look like?
We would have to, so I guess the first thing we do is we freeze all spending altogether. And second thing we probably have to do is look very hard at the paraeducators. Do we need to maybe reduce the number of, since we have so many one-on-one paraeducators, do we reduce the number of educators in the classroom and expect the one-on-one paraeducators to, if there's 3 one-on-one paraeducators in a classroom and 2 regular paras in a classroom, do we expect those 3 one-on-ones to kind of help out with it? And there's only 10 kids in the classroom. Do we expect those regular paras the one-on-one paras to help out in the classroom? Beyond that, you know, there's not much low-hanging fruit. You know, we operate leaner than any district that I've seen. And I would give another update on where I think we'll be next month, because we'll have our real apportionment number for the year. And that'll give us a better idea. Finding out how many kids are going to be in the transitional kindergarten class and how that's going to impact our apportionment, because we're able to pay for the bulk of those costs out of a grant this year. So the extra money we get from enrollment will just all go to other things. It would be a very difficult, be a lot of hard meetings to try and figure out, and meetings with the board for all of us to be in agreement with how do we cut $500,000 out of our budget when there's half a year left.
Got it. All right, I just wanted to hear it and to process that. I appreciate you providing that.
I mean, it honestly, it feels like you can't. You can't do anything with teachers for a million reasons, contractually, state funding model, K3 class size compliance, we're right on, we're doing a really good job of our classrooms are the distribution of kids per teacher is spread out as about as good as it can be. You can't really do a whole lot with transportation. Can't really do a whole lot with food service. There's not, staffing wise, there's not this. I mean, the pieces that you can touch are pretty small pieces. So it'd be some extremely difficult decisions.
Understood. And so what I'm hearing from you is that you'll have a better idea of kind of whether you really feel like we're not going to make it at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. In February or the next meeting in January? Are we?
I should know that, so second Wednesday in February should be enough time to know.
Okay, so February then.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Ava, I apologize. I should, this whole time on other board stuff, I should have included and asked if you had anything or anything like that. You have to forgive me because I'm completely out of practice with being board chair. So I'll ask you on this one. Is there any other questions, comments, anything you'd like to talk about, Ava? You are a valued member of this board, and I apologize for not including you more. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Okay, perfect.
My podium to ask Ava a question.
Sure. Oh, Ava, are you okay with
The Bay, big tournament thing, is that spectator friendly? Are we allowed to come? Or is it like in a classroom where they're hunkered down and doing their stuff?
There's state thing or?
You said, I think you said in your presentation that in end of February, there's some state qualifying.
We're hosting something.
We're hosting something. See, I put you on the spot.
After I already put her on the spot, so I apologize for that. But I just wanted you to know that I value you heavily, and I'm bad for not including you more in the discussion.
I don't know if spectators.
I can ask.
Yeah, that'd be
good.
Event or anything like that, and I'm sure a lot of people haven't been to those. I was just curious if they are spectator friendly.
Okay, I'll ask.
Okay, thank you.
They used to be many years ago, but I don't.
Yeah.
Get that blue ribbon.
I
Yeah.
just have no idea if they're in the gym, if they have people in the gym, or if there's in a classroom or.
Yeah, I think it should be.
So I noticed you mentioned just getting back on the bus buying schedule. What sort of timeline does that look like? And just buying like a new bus?
So we probably, as soon as we can, I think we probably need to buy 2 buses.
Okay.
And spend about, $280,000 as soon as we can. And honestly, there's a lot of positions in the state that are really hard to hire for right now, bus drivers being one of them, nurses, and those special ed psychologists, speech pathologists, those kind of positions are really hard to hire for. And the staff that manages our transportation, they are every day driving routes and not managing transportation. So I think there's going to be might be a gap this year where we're not going to probably buy a bus. It was about a 5-month ordering process.
Okay.
And for those watching, this is money that cannot be spent on anything except transportation.
Correct.
So what happens, just, I don't know if everybody, I didn't know this, but the state has a depreciation schedule for buses. And so they depreciate them over a certain number of years. So they look at your whole fleet. They look at how much depreciation that fleet earns in a year. And they give that to you in money at the end of the year to buy a new bus or buses or replace your fleet as many as you can next year. Small districts like us, we get about $110,000 a year in depreciation. So we can buy a small to medium-sized bus every year. We can save it for 2 years and buy a big bus. If you get out of the cycle of buying buses, eventually your depreciation whittles down. because your fleet's getting old. And as your fleet gets old, depreciation decreases. So you will have no ability to buy buses eventually. So that's why it's important to keep that purchasing cycle going.
Any other questions? Ava, any questions? Okay. All right, thanks, Marshall. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Moving to item 3E or 3D, sorry, superintendent report presented by Dr. Middleton.
Hey, either Corey or.
Here, I'll actually, this is gonna be the go ahead. I can push for you.
So we're moving away from a lot of the operational and financial things and getting into some curricular items and academics. And really, I thought it'd be a good time to re-educate the board and those who are watching tonight about early out Wednesdays. So I think there can be some misconceptions on that. And so I'm going back to my own youth in high school in Butte, Montana. We got out every Friday at noon. I had enough minutes Monday through Thursday. I don't know what teachers did in the afternoon, but it was really for athletics because you travel so far for competitions. You bring, families grab their kids and, drive 200 miles to a competition. So that's sort of a common thing, maybe not at noon, but when I became a principal in Montana, I got to a district that was an hour early out. Same reason on Fridays, let the whole family, get in the car and go to the away game. And then as superintendent, did that same thing in another district. And then finally, that sort of shifted and realized, okay, that's great for families and sports and so forth, but maybe you can adjust your schedule. But early out really need to have an academic focus. And so I've been involved with districts where we set aside 70 minutes. It was also on a Wednesday. And for PLCs or professional learning communities. So we can go ahead, Corey.
Yes.
So in Granite Falls, we do our early outs every single Wednesday. Approximately 40 Wednesdays in a year, in a school year. About 1/3 of them are for these PLCs, professional learning communities. 1/3 of them are for teacher early outs. So teachers use that time. They could be meeting among themselves, doing prep work, working with students. But it's their time on prep. We intentionally schedule those around, right before the holidays, because we're thinking, okay, we're not going to get a strong PLC, professional learning community work on that day. So we'll give them around those days. Or around grading period where they might need a little bit more time for grading or inputting grades. So those are very strategically placed. And then about 1/3 of them are just for all the other things. It could be job alikes, vertical articulation. This is something that's really important for us in this district. That's transitions. We want our second grade teachers to be talking to their third grade teachers about all the students who are moving up. Both general ed, special ed, 504, but we set aside time for those conversations. We also have some building directed days where principals just have time with their staff to, talk about safety plans or talk about whatever's going on in their building. And then a lot of those Wednesdays, there might be a holiday, for example, the half day before Thanksgiving. Obviously, there's nothing going on those Wednesdays. And conferences, that might take up a Wednesday. And then we've had a couple that are all day Wednesday professional development. So that's how those 40 days are. And that is something that is in the collective bargaining agreement. So let's go ahead, Corey. Most districts today have some form of early out, and the majority of them are for professional learning communities, as I said, referred to as PLCs. And in a PLC, there are 4 questions that guide every meeting. And so let's go ahead, Corey, to the next. So at these meetings, what we want teachers and administrators to be talking about, this is all academic focused. What do we want our students to know and be able to do? So that's the first. And then the questions, how are we going to know if they know it? It's one thing to teach it, but we need to be able to assess it and see that they've mastered that standard, that they've mastered that lesson objective. Here's the big question, and this is one we're working on continually. What do we do if they don't know it? Because the days of teach, test, and move on are long gone. I think we still have some pockets, but we need to be addressing this question. What do we do if they don't learn it? That's where the interventions come in. And the interventions come in the classroom, not push out. They need to start in the classroom and doing something differently and teach it a different way and perhaps assess it in a different way. And then the fourth question is, we have students, they know this stuff. We don't want them to be sitting there bored, then getting into mischief, distracting. So what are we going to do for the students that have already mastered this and that we can still challenge them? So these are the 4 questions that should be at the heart of every PLC meeting. Okay, go ahead, Corey. As I said, it's in the collective bargaining agreement, and here are some key points. This is language that's been there, and probably Dr. Manns would know the year, but it's been in there for a number of years. It's not something that came in when I came in 2019. It's been in for quite a while. And what I really appreciate about it is I've now sat in on a couple of bargains, and we don't change it. We like the language, but I don't think we've fully have embraced the language until this year. And we're putting a strong emphasis on having successful PLCs. So it hasn't changed, but both sides, when we sit down with GFEA, we're like, yeah, let's do it. And they're telling us, yes, let's make sure that administrators are involved. Yes, we will give you agendas and notes. That's what we agreed to. So the focus is based on collaboration between the principal and that team. And there are multiple teams in one building. Elementary, it's obviously going to be grade level bands and the specialists. At the secondary level, it could be by content area, and or it could be grade level also. So there could be a few different permutations on that. So the focus of these is, again, collaboration between teams and principal, but what's in the contract and what we want is we're looking at the assessment, that we're looking at the data that we're providing every 3 times a year, plus the SBAC and whatever classroom assessment that they're doing. Here's the key one: discussing and implementing instructional options and interventions. That one is one we need to continue to work on. And that's part of the process that Beth, I know, is working on, because before we refer someone, whether to Title I or to 504 or to special ed, we need to show that me as a teacher, I've done whatever intervention to help that student. And then the agenda, the norms, the results, the notes from the meeting, they're to be shared with the principal. And we have electronic files for that that can be passed along. Okay, let's go, Corey, on the next. So some of the things of examples of the effective teams, they have very detailed agendas. For example, I'm going to share one with you to take a look at from December 7th. Actually, I have 3 of them to share with you. They talked about the norms of the meeting. Everyone has a voice. If someone seems to be drifting or not participating, there might be a role for someone to say, okay, what do you think? So try and get people involved, respectful tone, that we stay on target. I mean, it's really easy. You get a group of people together and you have this task. It's really easy to, well, it's a little bit easier to talk about operations or behavior or something like that. Someone needs to round them up and say, no, we're talking about our performance right now. We're talking about this assessment. Materials needed, topics for discussion, and then I have some samples for you. The samples I have, would you just click ahead one more? I don't know if I have something else. Okay, let's click back. I'll get to safety in a second. The three I have are different. One is a first grade team. And, it's about 4 pages. It's very detailed, shows who's there, what their norms are, and what they really want to talk about. And this is the December 7th meeting. And they have it all lined out as what they want to talk about. So they're talking about alignment of curriculum, specifically in the language arts, new materials that how are we going to implement and make sure we're implementing with fidelity, and also can we all complete Unit 1 math, during this time frame. So really right on target. Then I have a third grade one, very similar, different, it's laid out a little bit differently, but they go into quite a bit of narrative and what they want to accomplish. And as a former high school teacher, I can appreciate this. You go to brevity, but it's still, you still have in here the key points you want to talk about. And so, they're talking about what are the power standards we want to cover in US history. That's a great topic to have. That's important to have because power standards are those that are the most important, that are most likely going to be covered later on in SBAC. And then talking about how do we create a common assessment between these classes. So I'll pass these around and let you take a look at these. Now, I'll be honest, I'm showing you the best. And I have a wide continuum because I've collected up from all the buildings, including our admin team. Actually, I should have included our admin team agenda because that's always pretty specific. But I have these, which are sort of highlight down to ones that would be needs improvement. And so what I want to say to you tonight is PLCs this year are a lot better than previous years, but next year it's going to be better. So I'll let you look at that, or do you want me to go to safety and then you can?
I could just pause there for a second, just because I don't want to have to make you flip back between a whole lot of slides. So for any questions, comments related to the discussion on PLCs.
I just comment, I've been looking at these since I got on the board. I've been in a lot of meetings with Karen, kind of going over PLCs. And I think we went to a conference in Vancouver like 8 years ago, all about PLCs. I mean, they're not a new thing. We've used them for a long time. And it's funny, seeing them grow has been very interesting to watch because, outside looking at it, I'm not an educator. But it's kind of been cool to see them grow.
I'll pop in just as the rest of the board is reading that. I appreciate you talking about this, Dr. M, because I think PLCs are the area that we can have the most immediate and significant impact to the outcomes, our student outcomes, because they are completely geared to dive deep into the data, our data focus, but, interventions, needs, those types of things. They are, they're teacher driven, right? So it's other educators talking to other educators, and sharpening the iron and stuff. And I believe wholeheartedly that if we lean into really making sure that these go deep, if they aren't surface level, if they go deep and they delve deep into the data, and again, basically re-saying what you already said, but what students do I have? What are the outcomes of the students that I have? Where do I need them to go? And if what happens if they don't get there? What do I do? That is the heart of what we strive to do, which is not necessarily to Director Ledoux's comments earlier, necessarily judge victory because that kid had an A. But, you know, the assessment data, the information said that we're at a D or we're trending to a D, and gosh darn it, we were able to get that kid to a C or a B or something like that. That's growth, right? That we identified the needs, we plugged the needs and stuff like that. So I think this year and obviously every year, we really need to go deep on this. I mean, a couple of questions. I looked at the CBA prior to this meeting. I highlighted a couple of things that I guess I just, you know, I want to make sure that we're also leaning into, and I guess also want to throw out an idea that as we are having our school improvement plan meetings with buildings, that they present some of the information from their PLCs, from their agendas, and you know how they're diving into data, what interventions they're doing, and those types of things. But I guess a couple of things just popped out to me, and I guess I just wanted to get your thoughts. And this is, as you said, right from our collective bargaining agreement with the teachers union for 23 and 25. It says professional development needs are determined within the PLC and then provided through the PLC structure or other agreed upon means when professional development interests are shared by more than one PLC or the entire school. PLC time will be devoted to meet this shared need. So I guess it's putting that into different words. So, you know, if in that discussion of what do I need students to learn and where do I need them to go, if you know one or more teacher goes, you know, that's kind of a hole. I'm not really sure how I'm going to do that. Right? They raise their hand, and then the system or the PLC or you know provides fills that professional development need that they have. Goes, okay, let's do something about that. How is that happening? I'm sure it's happening in different buildings, but are we doing that good work of really, you know, creating, I guess, obviously a safe space where people feel that they can, and again, this is teacher driven, but helping teachers ensure that with their other PLC members that they feel comfortable saying, hey, I have a need here, and raising their hand. And then how are they communicating that? Is that really defined? And how are we ensuring that we're wrapping around and giving them that professional development? And I apologize. I know it's a tough question, and maybe Dr. Mans is.
Great question.
Yeah.
Because really what we want our principals to do is to meet with each of those teams, or at least the team leader, and say, okay, how is your PLC going? What are your needs? Can you share the notes? And are you staying on target? I will say that I looked at some of the notes that principals shared, and I identified a couple of PLC teams that they got off track and they were talking about operational things. Now, if you have an operational question, okay, make a list, put it in the parking lot and move on. Let's get back to the assessment data. But if there is a need, principal might talk to me, might talk to Dr. Mans, and if there's something we can support, we have a TOSA who is a teacher on special assignment. So a teacher who might be able to go into that group and help. Well, actually we have two, one who could look at data or help with the technical side of things, or one who could help with the instructional side if that were needed. And if it were a systemic issue, I mean, then yeah, please do talk to us, because if we can bring in some other consultant or some sort of training, we would do that as well.
I appreciate that. So I guess what I'm hearing though is how do I say this? Because I don't know if you'd have the answer. I guess, are we also leaning into though allowing someone to feel comfortable saying that they don't know? You get what I'm saying, right? Because that's not a very comfortable thing to do, even in all the things that I do, right? You're going, I'm actually not really sure what you guys are talking about or how to do that.
Right. I would hope so, because that's what those norms are for. When the team sits down and say, okay, let's all agree, and that'd be a great power of agreement. Let's agree that if we don't know something, let's put aside our pride and say, you know what, I need help here.
Right.
I can't say that that's a norm in every PLC, but it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I appreciate you sharing these. I was only able to look at one because, like I said, I can't read and talk at the same time. But how are we ensuring that every PLC is having that level of veracity and that they're meeting and they're going deep into the data. You know, the CBC says the Labor Management Committee shall serve as a district-wide oversight committee to monitor progress of the varied PLCs and resolve any issues and impedes performance of the PLC. So I guess, you know, at a 30,000-foot level, I imagine that's the admin team and probably Dr. Mans and stuff like that. Right. So what systems do we have in place to go, you know what, from this PLC, I haven't seen anything in a while. Let me check on that and see what's going on. How are we doing that?
That's exactly where we're at right now. As I said, we have a continuum of success to really not satisfactory work. And so we meet monthly as an admin team, our own PLC, and this is what we're talking about every year. And quite honestly, we're ratcheting it up even more right now. And so we have a meeting next Thursday with them, and that's going to be part of it is, okay, you've been a little loose on expectations in the past. It can't be that way anymore. You've got to collect agendas every single month, collect the notes, analyze them, and visit them as well. I mean, it doesn't say they can't do a walkthrough during the PLC, but that's part of that. Inspect what you expect.
Yeah. So I don't do this to call it. I just do this because I process words in a different way. So what I'm hearing is maybe we haven't done such a great job at that previously, but we're leaning into that moving forward to create a system.
I go back to say we're doing PLCs a lot better this year than we have in the previous years. And we're going to do a lot better next year or this next semester than we did first semester.
Right. I don't want to hog all the questions board. Do you have any other? I've got a couple more, but
no, this is reassuring to see that, you know, at least I look through the first and the third grade, that there's convergence for the educational staff to be on the same page, right? We're making sure that what are we all seeing? What are the goals that we're agreeing on? What are we going together? My only one point of constructive criticism, I see some points of it, but we go back to that data point or the point of data and bringing data in. In my work, we call them weasel words. So weasel words are things like improve, increase, you know, all that stuff. If we can put numbers behind them, let's put numbers behind them, because then we can measure it and we can see, right? Like if we want to improve fluency reading rates, okay, well, what are they at right now? And what do we want to improve them to? Did we get there, yes or no? And if we didn't, what can we change? So those are the only points. So not really a question.
I got a couple more. Any other comments, or do you guys want? Okay, like I said, I don't want to hog the conversation. So I guess, Doctor, what can we all agree? The union, teacher, everyone agrees PLCs are important. What can I do as a board member to support kind of that message coming from us to you down, you know, to make sure that we're all aligned in that work? And then I guess an additional question of, you know, how do we judge success moving forward on that work of, you know, what does success look like for us? Is there some number of, hey, we were at, you know, blah, 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 now we're at blah, blah, blah. Or is it based upon outcomes solely of, you know, test scores have improved? What does success look like?
Well, it ultimately is just what you said. It's this is all in an effort to, one, have grade level, appropriate, engaged students who are learning in a rigorous environment that then translates to improved test scores, for sure. But it's also within an environment that teachers do feel safe, that if they need help on something, they can ask. In a way, you're asking, how might you support? And we were just talking about what's the ridiculous ask. I mean, board members, you come into the school to visit classrooms, come and visit a PLC and see what's going on. Sit and see some of the dialogue. I didn't bring this because I want Paige to save it for her presentation, but she does a lot of modeling within her school so that at a staff meeting, if she selects one really high functioning PLC and they go through a discussion in front of the rest of the staff as to, what that looks like to model for those other teams. But if you want to come to a PLC, yeah, let's.
I would love to. I will also state to any teachers that are within the PLC, we're just there to learn.
Yeah.
That's
Certainly
all.
not qualified to manage whether
No.
things are going well or
Just there to listen and observe.
But this is a conversation that we're having in this building and in our school buildings, and that is we're investing in PLCs. Dr. Meehan's meets with the PLC leads, those who have gone to the conference, and now they're sort of the leads in that building, and they're sort of the apostles of it, and they're making sure that they are highly functioning. And they meet, well, they met today, actually. I forget how often they meet, but they're checking in regularly. And so this is a big investment. So you want to know, is this a good investment in both time on Wednesdays? Because this is 80 minutes that we're dedicating to this. And for a third of those Wednesdays. And it's a financial investment too. In our contract, we pay PLC leads, and we pay the leads that Karen works with. So
Are the PLCs the 1/3 where the PLCs are taking place? Are those already on the schedule?
yes.
Okay. Would it be possible to either get that or maybe get that offline? Okay.
Is it, last question, and I promise this is my last. Is it possible is it too much of an ask when we're doing our SIPs and talking with buildings for them to have a section of that to talk about their PLCs in their building?
Actually, I've written that down mentally, and we're going to talk with our principals that be part of the conversation.
Yeah, and I don't want it to be just me, board. I mean, do you agree?
Yeah.
That's something you want, okay,
Yeah.
all right. I don't want this to be a Carl thing. Okay, perfect. Any other questions on PLCs? Okay, can we take a 15-minute bio break before you go into your next slide? Is that okay?
15 minutes?
Fine, that's fine.
5 minutes. I wasn't gonna say it.
I'm like 15, I'm like.
I gotta go.
Apparently.
1 minute, because I'll be done.
Oh,
Okay, go.
okay.
Yeah, this will be really good.
Okay, let's go.
Hey, where you guys going?
So, I think I shared in December, we were installing push gates where we had the perimeter fence, and the weather really prevented that installation. So we're looking to get those in really any time. There's been so much frustration with heating in buildings, and I know Marshall and Dion are going to meet with our vendor to talk about why are we not getting the service and parts that, we pay a lot of money for this, and it has been frustrating at every single building. Drug trends and prevention, that's on the 23rd at 6 p.m. It's advertised at the district office. I consider the district office in Crossroads, so it's the same address, 205 Alder. We'll do it in the Commons in Crossroads, but it'll be there. Chief Dalton and Lieutenant Hayes from Snohomish County will be presenting, and then we have someone from the ESD. And Chief Dalton and Frank Kirk and Marsha and I and Melanie met last week. We meet monthly just to talk about various things. And Chief Dalton is always asking, how can I help with safety? And so one of the things I ask is, okay, we have our updated management plan, and have a copy to him, but we want him to meet with each principal to go through it, how it impacts their buildings and how he can assist. So again, Chief Dalton's been a great asset for us, and he is committed to school safety in our district. So that's it.
Question board. Ava, any questions? Okay, let's recess to 8:04 for a bio break.
Did you mean to say 15 minutes?
All right. We'll call the board back to order. I'm not going to bang on the gavel because who needs that? So moving on to item 3E, board reports. Do we want to start with WIAA?
Sure. Yeah, no huge official reports or anything. Obviously, to get my seasons right, winter sports are in session. Continue to support everything. Ava did a great job with band and basketball the other night. Yeah, so and go out there. Also bear in mind, yes, there are the sports being played out there. But I was at the game last night or 2 nights ago, I'm forgetting, the boys basketball game, and also cheer on those that cheer for others, the cheerleaders, right? They're out there giving a great effort. So make sure you support them as well. Yeah, cheer on those that cheer others. But no, great. It's good fun. Make sure to get out there, support everybody. That's just kind of overall announcement.
Outstanding. I'll do ledger report, or should I go last? I should probably go.
I feel like you're
I
gonna
really
be.
Okay, mine short because I forgot my big long paper at home, so I'm just gonna go over a quick few things. Tomorrow is the Chamber of Commerce meeting at the City Hall. And they're swearing in new board members and they're looking for volunteers and chairpersons for all the fun events that go on during the year. So it should be a pretty good meeting. It's at
Nobody tell them, but I'm gonna have free time in a month.
Ooh. So that's tomorrow at 6 p.m. And then because we've changed our times, we can now all go to the city council meetings. I missed the last one, but I will be at the next one. So that is exciting. Let's see, Dr. Middleton talked about the drug thing. And the only other thing that I had to say was I got to go to the first grade concert right before this meeting and it was amazing and they did such a good job and they were so cute. So that was wonderful.
Outstanding. Any questions about the community report? All right. So ledger report. I will try to condense this as much as I can. Obviously, the legislative session is in order. We just recently had a ledge committee meeting this past weekend. So I spent Friday and Saturday in Olympia with other fellow Washington legislative representatives talking about kind of the upcoming legislative session, kind of the WASDA priorities, bills that have been pre-filed and kind of the lay of the land. And actually had some legislators, Representative Ybarra, and I forget the other gentleman's name, on the education committee. They actually came and we were able to, speak with them kind of briefly. I feel like everything I do is Chicken Little, so I'm sorry if I ever give that opinion, because if you ask anyone, I'm a very positive person. But there, in all of the communication, I started off prior to legislative session being very encouraged to kind of some of the conversations that I heard related to issues specifically that we have in Grand Falls, our SPED funding, which every district would have, and regionalization, which is kind of not a whole lot of districts have that issue. I've been able to talk with our other legislative representatives in other districts, and it seems like kind of we were all on the same message. And then I'm sorry to admit, kind of communication just went with Inslee and his proposed budget, which is kind of like a starting point and all that stuff. It feels like kind of what I'm hearing now, regionalization is kind of, and the fix of that is kind of being pushed to the side. And quite honestly, and even surprisingly, kind of the hopeful things that I had about SPED funding and them doing away with the percentage cap or significantly changing that, as we talked about earlier, doesn't feel like it's going to happen. From kind of what I'm hearing is that the plan, for at least from the governor's office, is to put a significant amount of money in the housing, increasing low-income housing and stuff like that, and that's such a big ask that there's not going to be a lot left on the plate for schools. Reichdahl, to his credit, I don't know if you guys have heard, but he's banging the drum pretty hard about how the state's fiduciary responsibility, paramount duty to fund education and all of that stuff, and to not kind of leave us in the mix. It's way too early to tell So I'm certainly not saying that, but even in my conversations with Representative Ybarra and the other representative starts with an R, I specifically asked them, said, the legislator is tasked to do something with regionalization. They have to do a reevaluation. What are the discussions, what are the things that you were hearing? And they're like, well, that's something that we're hoping to address in a significant way, in the next 2 or 3 years. I'm like, 2 or 3 years? Are you kidding me? And, so that's discouraging, but, again, we do more with less. So the work continues. I actually have a meeting. I was going to ask Dr. Emino and Marshall, you guys were included on that with our Senator Wagner, who, by the way, and I'll say this publicly, has always been a strong advocate for Granite Falls. He actually years ago put in a change to specifically give Granite Falls more regionalization that unfortunately never saw the light of day. So I have a meeting with him in the next couple of weeks. I'd love to have Dr. M and Marshall, you guys involved with that. My intent is to to also, just keep driving home our need for a regionalization fix, our need for SPED. I'm actually going to use some of this data, Dr. Mills, that you've been providing to kind of talk about SPED in a little bit more of a deeper way, to really try to lean into it. And I would, I'll certainly come back to the board with, any outcomes or anything like that. But in addition to that, and here's, I think, where we can all work together from a community standpoint, I think we can be a little bit of a squeaky wheel. Carolyn Eslick, who is our representative, now sits on the education committee. And so we have Senator Wagner, who I believe is on the Senate Educational Committee. We have Representative Eslick on the House Education Committee. I think we have also a strong advocate in Representative Lowe, who was recently elected. If we can get in, if we can double team, right, community, if we can reach out in a deliberate way, but in a clear way of emailing them saying, hey, I'm Director Ledoux, and I know that I appreciate all of your hard work, and I just wanted to say, we need some help here at Granite Falls, and stuff like that. It just as much as we can do to try to make our voice as loud as possible, I think would be helpful. If you need their contact information, heck, if you need a draft of something to say, we'll certainly do it. I will certainly help you out with that. The one thing that I think I'm starting to understand about politics is the polite squeaky wheel usually gets the oil. It seems like the angry squeaky wheel maybe gets, kind of ignored at times, but I would encourage you to be polite and, and thank them for, their service, but also remind them kind of our specific needs. And that's for everyone in our community. I've said it before, I'd be willing to step up and put you in contact and stuff like that. I've reached out to Representative Eslick to get a meeting coordinated. I haven't heard back yet. That doesn't mean that she's ignoring me. Maybe, there's a lot of things going on with the session starting and stuff. And I'm sure that she'll reach out, or her people will reach out when they have time. There's a ton of bills that are going out right now, it's just kind of a shotgun. When I was speaking with our WASDA legislative representative, our WASDA advocacy representative, who's the one that's testifying on these bills and really trying to keep an eye, and that's the person I communicate with as a WASDA legislative rep. The term I heard her use when she described the session is bill explosion, or sit down and buckle up, that there's just going to be a ton of bills. There's going to be, because this is the long session, a ton of things happening. So I'm not going to dig deep into, all of the things that are out there, because this would be a 3-hour presentation. I will say, though, that there are some bills out there. There is a specific bill to change the funding for SPED, to change it from a 13.5 to a 15. They're just now getting started on that. So we'll see. There is a bill to, modify special education funding formulas, give some additional reimbursement for evaluations and stuff like that. There are some bills to kind of clean, to do the universal free meals for everyone, and, continue some COVID funding money, addressing lower student counts for districts that are lower, that have had lower student counts coming out of COVID. Obviously, that's not necessarily something for us. Increasing levy limits and stuff like that. So we'll kind of see how all of that stuff, all that stuff flushes out. But it's too early for me to tell if it's if something's got rockets on and is definitely going to come. I will say on the topic of universal free meal that the conversation from the beginning and even today seems extremely positive. The board, on the board's behalf, and I appreciate your support. I'm going to the DC meeting, and that's SPED funding and universal free meals is one of the things that we're going to talk about at the Fed level. And there is a lot of kind of conversation around between some increased funding federally, some increased funding from the state that they're going to be able to get there as far as universal free meals. So that is a I'm not, let's not count the chickens, but it's certainly, that's a good thing, and that's something that I think would certainly benefit us and our families that we serve. Like I said, I could go on for an hour, but I guess I'll pause there and see if you guys have any questions or anything.
I did have one question because I thought I heard earlier anecdotally. So Everett's having their regionalization reduced.
Yeah.
Great question. Okay, so I guess let's touch on that real quick.
Sit down, I'll get ready for this.
Let's talk about this. Okay, so I guess real quick, the bill that made regionalization a thing has really 3 levels of regionalization: 6, 12, and 18, right? So every district was either at 0, 6, 12, or 18. In the budget forming process, somehow, some way, 24% magically appeared. No one's been able to really kind of tell me how. It's kind of like a backroom handshake deal, right? But the agreement was that those districts that got 24% would be kind of steadily reduced to 18%, right? Which is still 6% more than we get. So that's kind of what's happening is they're as well as Lake Stevens and Snohomish and the other 20 districts that initially got 24, they're ticking down to 18. Districts that were at 18 or lower are flat. They're basically staying at where they are. My concern, just talking about, just real quick, the proposal by Reichdahl, and Reichdahl is the superintendent of public instruction. The proposal from Reichdahl was that he wanted to, obviously he wants to do some serious work on SPED funding and stuff like that, which is good, but he wants to take everyone down to a 12% regionalization factor and then base the regionalization, and then I guess kind of reshuffle things, decides if someone else is going to get more than 12% or something along those lines. I'm not quite sure how that's done. And then give every district in that metropolitan area the same regionalization factor at that school. So theoretically, everyone gets down to 12. Someone goes, oh, well, Everett should be at 18. And then theoretically, we would all jump up to 18.
What would be considered in the metropolitan area?
Well, so the devil's in the details. Words have power, right? So that scares me of, well, you're not in the metropolitan area of Everett, or what I feel like potentially is more likely to happen. Again, this is just me kind of reading the tea leaves is, well, we helped you out with SPED funding, so we're just going to keep everybody at 12%. And you don't go, no one goes up because everyone's at 12%. It's more likely it's kind of, so they get to save all of that money, right? Because when you take everyone to 12, that's additional money that you no longer have to pay. You can kind of throw that over the wall at what they're going to pay for additionally for SPED. And you're like, look, isn't everyone happy? We gave you more SPED money, but they just moved it from your left hand to your right hand, right? And then for people like us, there would be no change theoretically. And so all we get is that 1.5 if they end up doing the SPED. So it's a very small like tick for us where everyone's else like, yay, good for us. So because there's some districts that get 0%, mostly east of the Cascades, that, you know, would theoretically go from 0 to 12%.
Does anyone in Western Washington get 0? Maybe it's South Olympia, even then.
I think there's a couple, but I think that it's like the super far bordering Oregon, maybe ones, if you consider that Western Washington on this side of the Cascades. Yeah. But there are some, not a lot, mainly on the east side of the Cascades, which is actually one of the chagrins people have about regionalization. If you talk to someone on the, what I call the Coug side of the mountains. So yeah, so that's kind of where that comes from. So yeah, sorry, long explanation.
No, that's all, because I asked because, like, well, that's terrifying. They're not going to increase regionalization for anybody for 2 to 3 years, but they'll gladly decrease it, because then to me, that says like, oh, no, you don't have districts nearby that are, you know, more than 2 regionalization factors over, because we're just reducing everybody around you. And then you're like, well, that doesn't help anybody. Like,
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm
We're all equal. Some are just more equal than others. Yeah.
all right. Any questions?
I don't think so. I was gonna ask you about free
Please.
lunches and you
Yes.
already covered that. What is the likelihood if we pressure these reps enough that maybe we could get them to one of our board meetings?
Great question. Actually, Doctor, about getting representatives to our board meetings or in our buildings. Actually, Doctor, this is a great time to revisit this conversation. Thanks for asking, Director
Yeah.
Kincaid, because we've talked about an invite of having the representatives come in. Probably not going to happen while this session is going, because they're really busy, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. And we're going to try to do it when we were dispersing, or we were doing the food drive, and we just couldn't get schedules of the representatives and everything to kind of jive, but that probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Right, I think we can do an invitation, but I also think when they did do their midterm community visit, they'll go out to the Arlington airport. And I know Carl went 1 year and Robert went, and I went 1 year, and we all asked the same question. It'd be great for all of us to go, and
Yeah.
because that's usually a Saturday morning, and you know, there are 40, 50 people there.
One last thing I forgot, sorry. We talked about Day on the Hill and not being able to make it, and you said that you were going to go, Director Ledoux, and actually my schedule changed a little bit where I couldn't make it if you didn't want to make it.
that actually works, because the Sunday I would be able to attend, but I actually just had something for work come up for the Monday. That's also there. So if you would want to.
Yeah, I'll be going in hot on Saturday, but my meeting that was going to take me away, actually, they said we can get out early, so I can fly in and drop straight there. I mean, it's flying to SeaTac, so.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll talk offline, but I think I can handle that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, moving on. Items from the floor. I know Chief Dalton, you wanted to speak, did you not, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you mind standing up?
I'm Chief Dalton, assigned here in the city of Granite Falls. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the board for changing their nights to every other Wednesdays to meet up with the city council meeting. That way I can offer my services should you need it for any security issues. But I also wanted to recognize Dr. Middleton. In my time in Granite Falls since 2014, he has been the best administrator, law enforcement friendly to the sheriff's office that I have come across. With all the changing times within our community and throughout the nation, we've learned from all the incidents that occur nationwide and locally. Whenever I have brought a concern to Dr. Middleton, it hasn't been shrugged off. He's accepted that and worked with me the best he can in order to facilitate my concerns and address the safety concerns of the students in Granite Falls. So I just wanted to address that with the board and thank him for that support.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Chief.
you.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you. All right, anybody else signed up to speak? I'm guessing. No? Yep. All right. Moving in, unfinished business, first and second reading to amend board policy 1400 meeting conduct, agenda, order of business and quorum discussion. Is there any discussion? I've got one little point on it, but someone else has something else. Hold on, I'm making sure that I'm pulling up the
I'm
first.
curious where the addition under meeting conduct and order of business, the red item that was added, where did that come from? About is unlawful for any member of the public to knowingly carry onto or possess on any area of the faculty. Yeah, why was that added there?
Where are you pointing at here?
Under meeting conduct and order of business.
It's the 1400 here in nunchucks.
Yeah, I mean, nunchuck sticks. What's in? Yeah,
Nunchuck sticks.
I know, but I'm like,
Yeah.
like, why is that singled out? Oh, why are there throwing stars? Oh, there are. I didn't even see throwing stars.
There are listed specifically.
Yeah. What about,
It's the ones that.
are there blow guns? I'm just saying, where did this come from? That part?
Well, dangerous weapons was on RCW United, so I'm sure there's a bunch.
I know, but it's just, yeah, I'm just like, huh.
Yeah,
That's so
I
random.
shouldn't have been listening. I overheard you say, Melanie, it was the
Is it
WASDA.
WASDA thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so as we change our date, we're just adding in this WASDA thing. That's fine. I was just like,
Wants to put it in as optional. It's up to the board of whether they want that language or not in there. So
I'm fine with it. I mean, I was like, well, that's a random thing to add with our changing of the dates.
I don't find any harm in adding to not bring weapons.
Nunchucks.
Yeah, weapons and nunchucks and all that stuff,
Yeah.
so.
Well, it's illegal on school grounds anyways.
Yeah, so I'm not opposed to it. I was just
These
like.
things always make me
Exactly.
chuckle, because like, what if we put, no, we encourage people to.
I know.
Do we have that, do I have that power? Do I?
Right. But I'm just wondering, like, how did this get added in with the changing of our days? That's all I was asking.
If I had the power to change laws, a lot of stuff would change. I gotta tell you that for sure. The only comment I have is there's, under public attendance and comment, it says insert reasonable deadline such as
Yeah.
24 hours. So, yeah, I think.
Are we gonna strike that? That was my next
That's
question.
they're not less than.
It says insert reasonable deadline such as 24 hours before the board meeting.
Yeah, by 3 PM the day, so. if
It
you
looks like you want to keep the green, get rid of the red.
Yes,
Is that what we're meant to do?
So, yeah, that's the marked up version is what you guys are looking at.
yeah, so red is being removed.
Removed, the green is being added.
Are we removing this red part then? It's unlawful?
Oh,
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm looking at it different now.
That part for that was, that's how they had it in red.
Okay, so we just copy and paste. Okay, that's fine. As long as I know what it means, I'm okay with
Yeah.
that.
So everywhere else, red is going, green is coming.
Correct.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah, yeah, we're not meeting.
How about
on the
blue?
second, First and fourth, third Wednesday.
Under legal, the RCW is in blue.
Okay, it's a live link.
Oh, okay,
I
okay,
like that if you'd like.
all right.
Okay, that's all my discussion. Sorry. Well, not sorry.
Any other discussion? So I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're doing a first and second on this because we've already really we've done this. Yeah.
Should I make a motion? I can make a motion to accept the first and
Please.
second reading to amend board policy 1400, meeting conduct agenda, order of business and forum.
And second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimous.
Just oppose everything.
All right, under new business, first reading to adopt policy 3117, students in or released from instructional education facility. Discussion. Is there any?
This one's pretty straightforward.
And give me a second, because I opened all of these before and then I end up with 20 tabs and I gotta figure out where was that tab. Maybe I can just click on it again. That's what I'll do. So this is a first reading, but it is a new policy, something that we currently don't have. Do we have any students in, just out of curiosity?
We could.
But do we currently?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Correct me or forgive me for being stupid, but does this mean like if they're
There
in
is no
jail,
stupid, you're good.
if they're like incarcerated or something?
This is a safe space where you can, like I was just talking about, Carly, you can say you don't know something.
I don't
And
know.
that is completely okay. Safe space.
Does that mean incarcerated? Yeah, okay.
Yep, or it could be secure, place for emotional
like mental
Okay.
services.
And
Okay.
Okay.
I was just curious.
So the question of why is it's, so this was a WASDA policy, right? Just
correct, yep.
clicking it, okay. The only thing I have under legal, it says undefined and then has some RCWs. I don't know if that's was intentional or what. I almost never read the RCWs, but I caught my eye.
I think that comes right from the laws.
On page
Or
2.
I wonder what they mean by undefined, and maybe that's supposed to be there, but it just, this is the first reading, I'm just bringing it up. And you can keep it or leave it on the second one. Any other discussion? Okay,
I motion to accept, I guess, the first reading to adopt policy 3117, students in or released from an institutional education facility.
outstanding. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded by Director Butler. All in favor?
Aye.
Pass unanimous. Okay, moving on to item 6B, first reading to amend policy 1220, board officers and duties of board members. Discussion.
we're doing it. I read it, I'm like, oh, we're already doing this. There's nothing new.
Yeah, I didn't
It's a
see
lot of semantics, changing words. And
Changing words.
a lot more detail on like, things. I did mention to Dr. Middleton when I was part of the agenda setting meeting, that just reminded me that we also don't have anything from a policy standpoint about the community liaison role. And that we probably should circle back and just have something in there. It's pretty unfair to you to say like, hey, do whatever you want,
Although it's kind of liberating
Or
too.
maybe it's liberating. Yeah, maybe I'm looking at it in the
What
wrong
about
way.
WIA, though?
Yeah, there's no WIA.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Is that covered in another board policy somewhere?
we should do some research on that.
You've got a couple.
You just not want to,
I'll bring it to our meeting in February.
Excellent.
you're right. There is nothing.
So we just need to add policy for community liaison and stuff like
Yeah,
I would suggest we accept the policy and then we can
Yeah.
add to it, revamp, yeah. There's no reason not to accept this as written, then we can always add to it again later.
the only other thing that I will bring up, and I didn't have the time to reconcile this, but the policy says, oh man, I really have way too many tabs open. Basically said that the legislative representative position was elected every 2 years as part of
the first reading.
meeting, even number of years. And I thought that that was in conflict with when we have our annual organization meeting and when we do a legislative rep and give. Or,
That's why we didn't, I remember why we didn't do that.
Yeah, because elections are on the odd year.
We do it when we do it.
so I didn't know, I guess, I always hate bringing up a problem without solution. Like I said, I didn't have time to fill it. So I don't know how those two marry, if we've got to change something, another policy now.
We can,
Meant.
We can amend this,
or maybe accept this and then I can come back with,
because we're gonna add stuff about WIA liaison anyway, so,
Yeah.
Change that.
yeah.
Are you,
Yeah.
you cool with that? Okay. I'm willing to entertain a motion.
Well, just to check, I read it clearly, but it doesn't say when we need, it doesn't say we have to do the election of a chair at a time frame, right? I didn't see it, but I missed it.
Yeah, I did not see a time.
Oh,
No, that's a good point. I did not see a time frame for that, but it.
Which is fine. I mean, it doesn't have to.
Yeah,
I mean, the answer to legislation is maybe just take it out and don't reference it. We just keep doing what we're doing. But, okay.
we can,
Okay.
what I'm hearing is we can fix it in the second reading. So, willing to entertain a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. We accept the first reading to amend policy 1220, board officers and duties of board members.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Pass unanimous. All right, moving on. Item 6C, first reading to amend policy 1225, school director legislative. Just as a discussion, we're already doing this. There's already 1225, I looked at it quickly, just obviously being your ledge rep, and was like, I don't see anything here other than the discussion. Oh, God, let me click
It's
on it
got the
again.
2 years.
Yeah,
thing up there.
other than that.
Yeah.
So I think that we're also good doing a first reading approval and fixing it maybe in second, or revising something else if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah, I had one question on this. This is something I noticed. It says it was last revised February 1st, 2023.
Oh. My date can't be right, can it?
I put
Unless
it
you're
in,
from the.
that's when the final approval would be taken.
Oh, okay, all right, just checking. Is it on the all of them? This is the only one I noticed. Oh.
You being our.
Man, I didn't look at the other ones that close. This one was all green, so I like literally read the whole thing.
But if it doesn't get approved,
It also
February first.
changes, the board will designate Carl Carey to serve as legislative.
You.
That's the only one
For the
that
rest
literally read the
of
whole
life.
thing.
Forever.
You won't say that, okay. Well, I was American.
Any other discussion?
No,
All right, everyone's in.
I'll make a motion. We accept the first reading to amend policy 1225, school director legislative program.
Outstanding. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by Director Kincaid. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. All right. Or policy 5010, non-discrimination and affirmative action.
Can I give context to this one, please? Here.
Yes.
So we, Jennifer Harmon, came and talked about 5010, I think at the last meeting. And in that, we listed percentages, and I know Board Chair Beach had some concerns because there could be some, being a smaller district, some identifiers. So I contacted WASDA, Abigail, I forget her last name, is the legal counsel on policy. And I had her look at ours, and she said, you really need to adopt ours. Ours was, I forget when the last time we adopted it, but she said, you really need to update this. So we basically just said, okay, we're going to adopt the WASDA policy.
Yeah. I have a question.
Mhm.
Under employment of person with disabilities for, or B4. What is 4?
I was just gonna say, there's an empty 4.
We just didn't get
Okay,
space
all right.
back.
So we'll clean that up in second reading. Cool. Didn't know if some got cut off by mistake.
So this policy that we're seeing is the identical WASDA
Right.
policy. Got it. Okay, any other discussion?
No.
Or is there a motion?
I motion that we accept the first reading of board policy 5010, non-discrimination and affirmative action.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded by Director Ledoux. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay. Let's just get past 6E.
Yeah.
Let's move right to 7A. If I don't accept it.
If I don't show up 4 times in a row, I'm going anyway.
All right, well, my least favorite part of tonight,
The minutes, basically. Oh,
item 6E, acceptance of Director Butler's resignation from Board of Directors. Any discussion?
just so you know, I left at the time I turned this in. We didn't know what day that's why it says the last regular scheduled meeting and not given a date. Because winter would be the 25th or the 18th or whatever. So that's why it doesn't have a date
Got it. So you'll still be here one more meeting.
on the 25th. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So we can have the cake.
Sure. Banana bread.
Well, I feel like I said all of the things. I won't make everyone sit through me saying all of the things, but we'll be deeply missed, echoing Director Kincaid's words earlier and Director Ledoux. Dr. M, do you want to just quick talk about the process moving forward or?
Right, so tonight with this vote, if it's accepted, we would then be able to advertise. And I believe for our recent vacancy, we advertised, I believe, for about 30 days during that time, if there were questions, we made ourselves available. We have a packet of information that we would share with anyone that that would be interested. But then they need to submit a letter of interest that describes their qualifications, why they're interested, their commitment. And from there, you, the board, would review those letters of intent or letters of interest and decide on setting up interviews. We have 90 days to do this, but I believe Director Butler said at the last one, I mean, the reason for doing this now is if the person is selected, if they want to file, they would
Have time.
get a taste of what this is and then file for the election.
Now, just so if people watching at home are watching, you can see what was just described in our policies. You can go to gfalls.wet.edu and look up our policies. It's policy 1114 and 1114-P. They kind of describe the exact procedure that we take to fill a vacancy.
And Robert, your district two.
To downtown, like Granite proper.
So one point, if you click on the website, that map, that's the old map. That's not the amended
It's not the
map of
current one,
District Two.
The one next to Robert's name.
Yeah, I just clicked on it. This is the one that
That's a 2010 map.
previous, just updating. Because it's now his district actually goes into Bosworth Meadows or Bogart Meadows. And
It's
kind of
different.
cuts off some Mountain Loop area, which
Some
is your area now. Yeah,
But the boundary by the high school stays the same, correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
That's what I was confused about. I knew one of the boundaries shifted.
Right.
Yeah.
So as they put in their address, of course, we would
We'll,
compare that to the legal description.
we don't have a map, we have a legal description. So if you think you're close on the map, call and they'll confirm. Or email and they'll confirm, sorry, not call. Just
So I'll just,
what?
I'll say a couple other
They can
things.
call, okay, cool.
The challenging thing once Director Butler steps down is that we can't have, can we still have two people? Are we still if we have two people, we're no longer a quorum missing.
Yeah, you need to have,
So you can only have one person missing from a meeting or we can't have the meeting. So just as an FYI, there was a couple of times, and the times that we
yeah,
had to nominate people were like, well,
let's go.
somebody's got to figure out a way to go home or we can't have a meeting.
Well, that's the
Someone-
beauty of Zoom these days, you know.
Well, that's not a bad point. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
That's actually a great point.
Yeah.
No excuses.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously we'll have a very defined process as we talked about for nominate, and then they have to run a year and a half, I think. Is when they.
This is a full term.
This year.
This is a full term. My term's up this year.
Okay,
So filing is in May.
Okay.
So from the way I read it, if we put them in before May, then they should file. Because my term is up this year.
got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
If I would have waited past the filing date, then it would have been weird.
Got it. Yeah.
I could, like, that's why I understood it. I could be wrong. So I assume that professionals double check that, but that's the way I understood it.
So can you do this? Can you make a motion?
I make a motion to accept the resignation of Director
His own
Butler.
resignation?
Yeah, I'm gonna motion that.
Is there anyone that wants to second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Ledoux, who is no longer our friend.
He was real excited to do that. I don't know.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
I'm gonna abstain.
One abstention, 3 yeas.
Just to be different.
All right, moving on to consent agenda 7A. Real quick, before we do that, I'd like to ask, I won't make the formal motion yet, that we remove item 7C, the personal report from the consent agenda, because it includes a family member of mine. I would like to abstain from that vote.
I make a motion, we remove item, what he just said from the agenda.
7C personal report. I will second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we'll vote on that separately. So consent agenda, now it's been modified. I think we can still approve it with unanimous consent. Is there anyone who has an issue with consent agenda? Okay, moves forward with unanimous consent. So item 7C, is there a motion to approve?
Is there any discussion? Who's your family member?
Not everyone who's a family member has to laugh my same way.
I know, that's why I'm asking. No, there's none, I'm just messing with you. Make a motion, we accept the personnel report formerly known as item 7C.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by Director Kincaid. All in favor?
I
And one abstention.
make a motion to accept the adjusted consent agenda.
Oh, was there an adjustment to the consent agenda?
Well, you took out 7C.
We just voted on 7C.
Yeah, I know, but don't we have to approve?
That's only if we add stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for checking. Okay, so that's it. We're at item 8A closing. However, the board is going to go into an executive session for the purposes of personnel. Is that the correct statement there, Melanie? For personnel? For the purpose of the executive session?
To review.
To review personnel. Okay. That will be, what do we say? 45, 30 hour, what do we want to say? I obviously got 15 minutes earlier wrong today. But
Well, I mean, honestly, I was gonna suggest, and I mean, I don't want to, I was gonna say postpone it until Director Reach could be here. Really, are we confident? I mean, I don't know. Ooh, let's say 30 minutes.
okay.
Yeah. You're looking at me like I'm in charge of it.
No, I'm looking for time wise. I don't know. Everyone knows kind of what they want to say and stuff like that. So, okay. We will go into executive session for 30 minutes. And there will be no action after. So let's take I'm trying to do math. Let's take a 10-minute bio break and then it'll start the 30 minutes. So we'll say at 9:20, we will reconvene. Okay,
Wait, reconvene?
After the executive session.
after the.
Oh, sorry, yeah, gotcha. Gotcha.
All right,
Sorry, I'm like, wait, what did you say?
okay,
Okay.
all right, I did that, okay.